You simply cannot imagine just how cursed with misfortune this man is. Born with an 8-star rank, yet he cannot even beat a 1-star swordsman. After years of relentless effort, he finally pushed his magic power to a terrifying level, only to be told he has no talent for using magic. The reason for his streak of terrible luck is nothing else. It all started when he was browsing the web one day, and stumbled upon a game called Endless. Out of curiosity, he launched the game and chose to start on Hell mode. What he never expected, however, was that he would be transported to another world entirely. And not just that, he was reborn as a serf, the lowest class of all. This meant he had no job talent whatsoever, and was forbidden from leaving his village. Over the 5 years of his rural life, Alan had gradually settled in. He never revealed that he was a reincarnator, because the last thing he needed was unnecessary trouble. Still, despite the Hell mode start, there was one saving grace. He had chosen a hidden ability at the beginning, the Summoner. While this ability was incredibly complicated and difficult to use, it came with a special effect. If he could collect 20 summon cards, his own stats would grow based on the traits of his summons. Right now, Alan is using this very mechanic to build his physical strength to an adult's level. But just as Alan is lost in thought over this, a familiar voice suddenly reaches his ears. Let's play the knight's game. Seeing that it's Krina from the same village, Alan agrees without hesitation. Since he cannot hunt magic beasts yet, sparring with Krina is the perfect way to build combat experience. It may look like children playing around, but during their matches, Alan does not let his guard down for a single second, because Krina's swordsmanship is surprisingly advanced. Even after Alan adjusts his stats before the fight, his speed still cannot keep up with her rhythm. Within just a few rounds, his wooden sword is completely shattered by Krina. Alan can't help but think out loud, seriously? That's the 10th sword already. Krina, meanwhile, couldn't look more delighted, beaming as she says, playing with Alan is just so much fun. Alan forces a smile and replies, glad you're enjoying yourself, but inside, he thinks, I spent 5 grueling years training, and you just breeze right past me like it's nothing? Seeing this, Roden steps in to comfort his son. Being able to hold your own against Krina for even a few rounds is already impressive. After all, she's destined to serve the royal family as a sword saint someday. And just as Roden says, Krina had recently received the sword saint talent at the appraisal ceremony. As for Alan, Krina insists his talent must be something remarkable too. After all, the appraisal crystal had blazed with a brilliant golden light. Hearing this, Alan's mother immediately asks if that's really true. The answer she gets, there was writing on it, but I'm a serf. I can't read. Alan can't help but mutter, Dad, even if you could read, it wouldn't have helped, because whatever it said about my talent came out as complete gibberish. Alan thinks to himself, that careless deity of this world handed him a brand new talent without even testing it first. Thanks to that, he cannot reveal his identity as a summoner to anyone. Still, at least the family he was reborn into is decent. They never look down on him for failing to appraise a talent. Just as Alan feels a quiet sense of relief, Krina's father suddenly arrives and tells everyone it is almost time. The reminder snaps them back. Today, knights from the order are coming to meet Krina, the newly confirmed sword saint, not wanting to be late and cause offense. Everyone hurries toward the center of the village. Suddenly, a commoner child calls out to Alan and declares, a serf with no talent has no business being here. Krina immediately steps forward in a fury to argue back. Alan himself, however, is completely unfazed. As a reincarnator, there is no way he is going to take some kid seriously. Just then, the village chief speaks up, the knights are here. Everyone clear the way. Everyone obeys at once. But what no one expects is that the one leading the group is the commander of the order himself, a man with the sword master talent. While the crowd buzzes with excitement at the sight of him, the commander has already walked up to Krina and asks if she is the sword saint. Krina confirms that she is, but after a moment of silence, the commander abruptly announces, falsely claiming a talent is a capital offense. To verify what you've said, there will be a mock duel. Krina's father cannot accept this. They already had the appraisal ceremony, but before he can finish, the commander states that if they refuse the match, the entire family will be charged with false claims. The unreasonable demand fills Alan and the others with anger, but as serfs, they are powerless. Krina, in sharp contrast, looks positively excited. I'll be fine. Let me handle this. And so the test begins. Krina, with her sword saint talent, faces Leibrandt, who holds the spearman talent. Just like when she fights Alan, Krina opens with a fierce offensive charge. Leibrandt deflects her attacks with ease. But Krina does not back down. She launches an even fiercer assault, drawing cheers from the watching commoners. Alan is not surprised by her skill. After all, the two of them had been playing the knights game since she was 3 years old. Even so, her swordsmanship is clearly no match for a real knight. Within 2 rounds, Leibrandt sends her flying with a heavy kick. Krina hits the ground and stops moving. Alan bolts forward in a panic, but before he takes 2 steps, the other knights block his path. Just as he stands there, worried sick about Krina, Alan suddenly notices Krina is getting back up, and her condition looks different. Leibrandt seems to sense something, but before he can react, Krina is already rushing at him again. This time, both her strength and speed are far beyond what they were before. Her blade work is so fierce and relentless that Librant cannot land a single counter. Everyone present is stunned. With a thunderous crash, the commander calls the match. Krina looks like she could keep going, but since the commander has spoken, she has no choice but to stop. The crowd erupts in cheers. She just defeated the vice commander of the entire order. There is no question about it. Someone with this kind of power is a once-in-a-generation sword saint. Krina immediately asks the commander if she can become a knight now. The answer? She must first turn 12, then complete her studies at Academy City. Alan can't help but think to himself, there's an Academy City too. But come to think of it, Librant is the vice commander of the order, with the spearman talent. Even though he used a sword in the duel, his base level should still be quite high. Yet in front of Krina, who is only level 1, he was completely helpless. Is this really the power gap that star ranks create? And apparently, Alan is the only one on this entire continent whose stat growth is set to maximum difficulty, meaning it takes 100 times the effort just to keep up with an average person's progress. Thanks to that, even after 5 grueling years, his level is still only 1. But if a 3-star sword saint is already this powerful, then what will an 8-star like him become? After he overcomes every obstacle in his path, driven to reach level 2 as fast as possible, Alan throws himself into training around the clock. In the blink of an eye, a year passes. After 200,000 rounds of throwing practice, the skill finally reaches level 3. At this rate, it should take another 5 years to reach the next level. After wrapping up a day of training, Alan heads home, but by late into the night, Rodan has still not returned. As winter approaches, Rodan normally leads the serfs on a magic beast hunt, but this is the first time he has ever been this late. Just as Alan and Trisha are growing more and more worried, a group of serfs comes rushing toward them, carrying Rodan, badly wounded. Trisha immediately falls into a panic. Jelta steps forward to calm her. Easy, Trisha. We treated Rodan with Miraz flowers, bought at great cost from the order. He should not be in any danger. Alan is confused. Rodan hunts over 10 large magic beasts every year. He should be a high-level hunter. So how did this happen? Jelta explains. By order of the village chief, commoners were brought along on the hunt this year. That's what caused the accident. Rodan got hurt protecting. Alan says nothing more after that. After a long and agonizing night, Rodan finally regains consciousness. The whole family breathes a sigh of relief. Even so, the sight of it all makes Alan feel a deep pang of guilt. As the eldest son, what had he actually done for his family all these years? As he sits with that thought, Jelta turns to Rodan and says, "Don't worry. Until you recover, I'll take care of your whole family." But before the words have even settled, Alan immediately speaks up against it. "There's no need for that, Jelta. I'm still here after all." Alan's words leave his parents speechless. He is only 6 years old. How could he possibly shoulder that kind of responsibility? But what no one expects is that Alan is completely serious. The very next morning, he begins harvesting crops to secure their food supply. In just 2 days, he finishes gathering every last bit of grain, a speed so astonishing it leaves even Gelta at a loss for words. Still, even with food taken care of, they still need meat to get through winter. With that in mind, Alan heads out to the outskirts of the village. Because he had been putting in steady, experience-building work every day, he has not only gained new summons, but also unlocked an additional ability, Card Enhancement, a skill that boosts the stats of his summons. With everything in place, Alan summons a frog, and commands it to use the taunt skill. His plan is to lure in enough birds to carry them through the winter, but after waiting for a long time, not a single bird takes the bait. Just as Alan is about to give up, a massive creature suddenly sweeps over his head and dives straight toward his summon. When he gets a clear look at it, Alan gasps. An Aruba heron? This is a magic beast with a rank D level of power. Its enormous size makes Alan more than a little nervous, but he has no intention of letting it go. This is his first real encounter with a magic beast. Without hesitation, Alan activates his throwing skill and lands a direct hit on the Aruba heron's left eye. The sneak attack lands perfectly. While the beast is still disoriented, Alan grabs his wooden sword and goes in for a heavy strike, but his strength is still far too low, and he barely leaves a scratch on the Aruba heron. Seeing this, Alan immediately summons a large number of summons. He is going to drag this out into a war of attrition. On his command, a pack of wild wolves launches a frenzied assault on the Aruba heron. Even so, facing these rank F magic beasts, the Aruba heron is completely unfazed. Alan's confidence starts to waver again. Maybe he really isn't ready for magic beast combat yet. Just as he is about to retreat, the Aruba heron suddenly breaks through the wolf barrier and slams Alan to the ground beneath its claw. It dawns on him that this is bad. Desperate to break free, Alan commands the wolves to attack again, but even that does nothing to loosen the Aruba heron's grip. Just as its beak is about to snap down on him, Alan suddenly remembers there is one summon he has never tested. He has no idea what its special ability is, but with nothing to lose, he goes for it. Alan summons the leeches and orders them to attack the Aruba heron immediately. He doesn't have high hopes. After all, there are only 2 of them. But what happens next shocks him. The grip of the Aruba heron's claws is growing weaker. It turns out the leeches have the ability to drain energy, and thanks to that, Alan finally breaks free from its hold. However, most of his summons have already been wiped out, leaving him with almost no buff remaining. The Aruba heron, though, is clearly far more weakened than he is. Seizing the moment, Alan and his remaining summons launch one final all-out assault. With a piercing cry, the The Aruba Heron's information appears in Alan's grimoire. This is his first time earning experience, and the rush of achievement that comes with it leaves Alan completely hooked. After taking a short rest, he carries the Aruba Heron home. His parents are speechless at the sight, but before they can recover from the shock, Gelta comes hurrying over and says to Alan, "I spoke with the village chief about what you proposed," he said, "that as long as you keep catching Aruba Herons, everything except the feathers and magic stones can be yours to keep." The deal leaves Alan thrilled beyond all expectation, and from that day on, Alan hunts an Aruba Heron once every 3 days. Before he knows it, he has reached level 2. Alan is overjoyed and can't help but think, "This is hell mode alright. It took me 6 whole years just to reach level 2. But leveling up fully restores both physical strength and magic power, and the stat boost far surpasses anything aging alone can provide. After a month of recovery, Rodan should be well enough by now. The time has come. He can finally move on to the next phase of his plan, to put his mind fully at ease. Alan goes to Rodan and Trisha and tells them a story, that when he was just 1 year old, he heard the voice of the god of creation and was granted great power and wisdom. But the price is a trial that 100 ordinary people could never overcome. The story shocks both of them. But thinking back on his strange behavior over the past month and his naturally unusual hair color, Rodan has no choice but to believe him. With that settled, Alan begins preparing for the next step. He plans to leave the village as soon as possible and venture out into the wider world. But before that, there is one thing still weighing on his mind. Alan goes to Gelta and asks if there is any way for a serf to become a commoner. Gelta replies, "Rumor has it that if you pay the Lord 10 gold coins, he may grant you commoner status as a reward." Alan does the math in his head. There are 5 people in his family, which means they would need 50 gold coins in total. For a serf, that is an astronomical sum. But Alan is not about to give up. He spends a few days looking into the local market and figures out that hunting 500 Aruba herons would be enough to cover the cost. That will take several years. He thinks about buying better weapons to speed things up, but the weapons available in the village are simply not worth the price. Just as Alan is lost in thought over this, a familiar voice suddenly reaches his ears. "What are you sneaking around in front of my old man's place for?" Alan can already tell this person is looking for trouble. Better to keep the peace. He decides to just ignore it and walk away. But then the other boy demands that Alan become his lackey. That crosses a line. Back when he used to play games, he never let a single person who picked a fight with him walk away clean. With that in mind, Alan tells Dagulak to bring it on. Seeing a serf with no talent act this bold, Dagulak decides to teach him a lesson. But faced with Dagulak's aggressive charge, Alan doesn't flinch. His movements are nowhere close to Krina's 3-star level. Within 2 rounds, Alan takes him down. Dagulak refuses to admit defeat, insisting he can still keep going. But Alan has no interest in wasting any more time on him. He tosses out a quick, "I've got shopping to do," and walks off without looking back. After that, however, Dagulak latches onto Alan and keeps showing up to spar with him. Before long, Dagulak has joined Alan and Krina in their night's game. The gold coin count grows slowly, but overall things are moving along without any major problems. Just as Alan thinks his plan is proceeding smoothly, something happens in the village that shatters the peace. After returning from the village chief's home, Rodan and Gelta come back looking deeply frustrated. The boar quota this year is going up from 10 to 15, and they want more commoners and serfs involved in the hunt. They push back right away, but since the order comes directly from the Lord, there is no room to refuse. On top of that, word is the quota next year will rise to 20. Hunting magic beasts is dangerous enough on its own, let alone taking down 20 massive and ferocious boars. While everyone is fretting over this, Alan suddenly has an idea and speaks up. "I have the wisdom granted by the god of creation. Can I join the hunt this year?" The next morning, they set out to hunt boars beyond the village. Before leaving, Rodan reminds Alan to be careful out there. But just then, a commoner walks over and says to Rodan, stumbling over his words, "This year, if I get into danger again, please don't." Before he can finish, Rodan cuts in, "Don't worry about it, just focus on the hunt." With that, the group sets off. Alan thinks to himself, no wonder they're including commoners. With this few people, hunting 20 boars would be nearly impossible. His job this time is to make sure these 2 commoners get through the hunt safely. Just as Alan is still thinking this over, the heavy village gate slowly begins to open. This is his first time outside the village in the 7 years since his reincarnation. Everything around him feels fresh and new. Rodan calls out to remind him that the group is already pulling ahead. Don't fall behind. After some time on the road, the group arrives at the boar hunting grounds and gets into formation. Alan hangs back behind the group. His eyes drift toward the White Dragon Mountains in the distance. Rumor has it that real dragons live there. Just as Alan is lost in thought about this, a shout suddenly comes from a serf in the distance. At the same moment, a massive boar appears before the group, its sheer presence so overwhelming that even Alan feels a jolt of fear. Gelta and the others, however, look perfectly calm. A beast of this size is nothing they haven't dealt with before. With the formation in place, the group manages to hold the boar at bay. Mihei. Seeing this, Rodan's group springs into action, launching a flanking attack from both sides. It is precisely this tactic that allows Rodan and the others, despite having no talents, to bring down magic beasts far stronger than themselves. As long as the formation holds, things should go smoothly. The reason Rodan got hurt last year was because untrained newcomers had been placed in the spear formation. This year, Alan makes sure to keep the two commoners in the rear, ready to strike at the right moment. At the same time, Alan summons crickets beneath the boar's feet. With everyone working together, the massive beast is taken down quickly, sending everyone into a frenzy of excitement. On top of that, the two commoners both level up from the fight. Alan is thrilled beyond all expectation. Just as he had hoped, experience from a hunt can be shared among the whole group. Alan looks down at his grimoire. What he sees next sends a wave of excitement through him. His strategy of letting others do the heavy lifting still grants him full experience, and on top of that, he has reached level 3. This is far more efficient than grinding on his own. It looks like, until he collects all 50 gold coins, this method will be his fastest way to level up. Meanwhile, his summoner skills have been keeping just as busy. After 5 months of repeated practice, not only have his skill levels reached rank 4, but he has also unlocked a new ability, storage. To test it out, Alan activates storage right away. A cube roughly 30 centimeters across appears in his grimoire, a skill that can store an unlimited number of items. Next comes the generation and combining of rank 1 summons. Summoning them requires magic stones of the matching rank. Rank 1 magic stones are not hard to come by. Magic beasts this week are basically food for humans, and the magic stones inside them are considered worthless, usually tossed into the corners of the village. Then again, the unlimited storage skill seems tailor-made for holding exactly these kinds of stones. After 3 days of gathering, Alan is finally able to use ranky summoning. But when he calls forth these brand new summons, what he sees nearly floors him, because he realizes the types available to him cover attack, defense, basic healing, and target locking, a full set of roles. As that realization sinks in, a vision of the future flashes through Alan's mind. Countless summons surrounding him. An unstoppable, all-crushing army that sweeps every enemy before it. The seasons turn, and before long, the annual hunt comes around once more. Because the quota this year is 20 massive boars. The Lord himself has come to the village for the first time. He is said to be here to observe the hunt, but the entourage he brings seems far more than necessary. While everyone is murmuring among themselves, the Lord walks up to the village chief and says, "I know this hunt is a lot to ask of you all, but this comes directly from His Majesty the King. There is simply no refusing it." Just then, the Lord's gaze falls on Alan standing nearby. The village chief immediately steps forward to make the introduction. He is the son of Rodan, the boar hunter, and has come here to explain the situation. At that, the young girl standing behind the Lord immediately asks, "He's not a serf, is he?" But before she can finish, the Lord sharply scolds Cecil. She quickly apologizes to her father. At the same time, she fixes Alan with a sharp, resentful glare. Alan isn't quite sure what to make of it. Then the Lord speaks up. "Son of Rodan, I'd like you to guide us. The hunting itself, I'll leave that to the knights." Without a moment's hesitation, Alan turns him down. 20 boars is nothing. Working together, we can handle it. The Lord is taken aback. Just as he's about to ask where this confidence comes from, word suddenly arrives that the hunting party has returned to the village. Moments later, Rodan and his team appear before the crowd, dragging 3 massive boars. The sight leaves the Lord speechless. He never expected a group of talentless serfs to bring down 3 giant boars. And on top of that, some of them are wearing full armor. Alan explains, "That armor was crafted from the boar hides you gifted us last year, though over the past 2 years, 20 new hunters have joined the team, so not everyone has been equipped yet." The Lord nods, visibly impressed. "Sounds like things are going well. That would leave 17 boars remaining." But Alan immediately corrects him. Only 10 remain. That surprises the Lord all over again. The hunt has barely been underway for 2 weeks. Alan explains, "This year, both our manpower and our equipment are far beyond what they used to be. Taking down multiple giant boars in a single run is no problem at all. So, this year's hunting quota, our village of Krina can handle it entirely on our own." The Lord lets out a quiet laugh. "It seems my worries were completely unnecessary." Sensing the right moment, Alan presses forward. "To ensure the hunts continue to go smoothly in the future, would you permit us to freely use the boar hides we obtain?" The Lord agrees on the spot without a second thought. His steward feels they should look into it more carefully, but the Lord brushes that off entirely. Alan can't help but think to himself, thank goodness this Lord is a reasonable man. With their equipment now secured, Rodan's team swiftly finishes off the remaining hunt. The Lord gazes over their results and speaks with genuine admiration. The territorial expansion edict has been in effect across the kingdom for 15 years now. In that time, countless pioneer villages have met their end in failure. Yet Krina has not only survived under these harsh conditions, it has grown. All of that is thanks to the tireless efforts of you two, Rodan and Gelta. I have been told that for 10 years straight, you led the hunting team and made enormous contributions to this village's development. As the lord of these lands, it is only right that I express my gratitude. To stand before such exceptional people and offer nothing in return would be a failure of my duties as a lord. Therefore, I hereby grant Rodan, Gelta, and their families the status of commoners. I hope that as commoners, you will continue to fulfill your duties. The words hit Rodan and Jelta like a wave. They are overjoyed beyond words. And it isn't just them. Alan himself nearly lets out a shout of excitement. After all, he had only earned 5 gold coins over the entire previous year. He had thought it would take another 10 years of grinding before he could finally make it out. And yet, here he is, a commoner. Just like that. That means tomorrow he will finally be free to leave the village and start adventuring. He's still riding that wave of excitement when the Lord turns to Rodan and asks, "Why did you choose C-rank magic beasts, the giant boars, as your hunting target in the first place?" That question catches Alan's attention too. His father had never mentioned anything about it. Jelta steps forward. "Allow me to explain. 10 years ago, we cleared this land alongside over 100 fellow serfs. But when winter came, the boars raided their food stores. Everyone fell into despair. It was then that Rodan stepped forward and declared, 'Let's hunt those boars and eat them.' And so, under Rodan's leadership, they fought, and by fortune's grace, they won. But one of their friends did not make it through. That loss has stayed with Rodan ever since." The Lord goes quiet, then bows his head. "Forgive me for bringing up something so painful. I had no idea you shouldered such a burden at such a young age. It is a Lord's duty to honor the efforts of his people. So let me offer you one more reward. Ask for anything you wish." The words leave Rodan at a complete loss. While he racks his brain for an answer, his gaze drifts and lands on Alan, and just like that, the words come out. "Then, could my son Alan be allowed to work in your lordship's household?" Alan's face goes completely blank. The Baron glances back at his steward. With a knowing nod, the steward says, "That should be perfectly fine. The boy seems sharp enough." Alan fires back internally. "Shouldn't you two be pushing back on this?" The Baron suddenly turns to Rodan. "Having him do odd jobs, though, that won't do." Alan feels a spark of relief. But before he can finish that thought, the Baron continues, "Alan will serve as an attendant of House Grungel." Rodan lets out a stunned cry. In sharp contrast, Alan can only feel things spiraling further and further out of control, and before he can even process what just happened, Rodan reaches over and ruffles his hair. This is incredible. Watching his father's face, eyes glistening, smiling through tears, Alan hesitates, but in the end, he turns to the Baron and says, "I look forward to your guidance." And just like that, with a look of total resignation, Alan becomes the Baron's attendant. Tomorrow morning, he will be leaving the village alongside the Baron. When Krina hears the news, her face falls. "You're really leaving?" Alan gives a quiet nod. She still looks downcast, so Alan looks at her and says, "How about one last night's game before I go?" Krina's eyes light up. She's in. With everyone gathered to watch, the two of them face off. It's the first time Alan has ever called Krina by the title of Sword Saint, and to live up to that name, Krina comes at him with everything she has. But to her surprise, Alan is far faster than before. So fast that she can barely get a counter in. To win this fight, Alan had reallocated his stats specifically for this moment. With those abnormal numbers behind him, Krina is quickly overwhelmed. A gasp ripples through the crowd. This is the first time Alan has ever beaten Krina. Faced with that result, Krina has no choice but to admit it. She lost. But Alan shakes his head. "Call it a draw. If you want a rematch, we'll settle it next time." Those are his words. But deep down, Alan knows the truth. The two of them may never see each other again. In a few years, Krina will be heading to Academy City to train. He had spent almost every magic stone he had collected just for this one fight. But if it means they can part with smiles on their faces, it was worth every last one. And so, surrounded by people who don't want to let go, an unforgettable day comes to an end. Early the next morning, as Alan heads to meet up with the Baron's party, he runs into Dagulak along the way. Dagulak has been waiting there for some time, all to present Alan with a small, finely crafted short sword. They exchange a few quiet words. Then the two of them say their final goodbye. Alan and Rodan make their way to the Baron's carriages. Rodan gazes at the carriage ahead, then turns to Alan. "The moment you step into that carriage, your life as an attendant begins. I believe your future holds far more than this, so make sure you use this opportunity well." Alan looks back at the village, the place he has called home for 8 years. Quietly, a thought crosses his mind. "I'll do my best. Although, wait a moment. Wasn't he supposed to be the Baron's attendant? So how, in the span of a single night, did he end up becoming Cecil's personal attendant?" Meanwhile, in the capital of the Grungel domain, a boy and a girl are picking apples from a tree. No matter how Cecil stretches, the apples stay just out of reach. She turns on Alan with an irritated scowl. "Can you stand up straight? How am I supposed to reach anything like this?" Fuming, Alan strains with every bit of strength he has and finally hoists her high enough to grab one. But after one bite, Cecil wrinkles her nose. "This is awful, Alan. Go to the market and buy some proper ones." Alan nearly collapses on the spot. He had dreamed of a life hunting magic beasts. So by what twist of fate did he end up running errands for an 8-year-old? Then something enormous catches his eye, and he can't help but cry out, "There's an airship here?" Cecil rolls her eyes immediately. "It's just a magic ship. What are you so worked up about? Come spring, I'll take you to get a proper look. My brother will be coming back from Academy City on one of those." That said, she promptly shoos Alan off to buy the apples. So Alan changes into plain clothes and heads into the town center. Along the way, a particular building catches his eye. His eyes go wide with excitement. The Adventurers Guild, a job that earns you money and loads of experience at the same time. It's like it was made for me. He wastes no time and heads straight inside, declaring that he wants to register as an adventurer. The response is flat. The minimum age to register is 12. Sorry, come back when you're older. Alan is devastated. An age requirement. He never saw that coming. Still, being shut out of registration doesn't mean he's giving up on hunting magic beasts. Just as he's about to leave, the quest boards on the wall catch his eye. Alan immediately pulls out his grimoire and uses its auto record function to log the magic beast information and the listed rewards. But something feels off. None of the quests list the locations where these magic beasts can be found. While he's puzzling over this, a voice calls out from behind him. "Hey, kid, what are you doing here? The guild is no place for a little runt like you." Alan doesn't bother to respond. Instead, he simply asks, "Where do the magic beasts on these boards usually show up?" The reply is cold. "Did I say you could ask me anything?" Alan smoothly plays it cool and promises to leave the moment he gets his answer. The adventurer sighs and answers with obvious impatience. "Those beasts spawn all over the place. That's why there's no specific location listed. But the closer you get to the White Dragon Mountains, the higher the rank of the beasts. I've never been there myself, but I've heard it takes about 7 days on foot to reach the base from here." Alan tries to ask about the layout of the area near the city, but that's finally enough to make the adventurer ignore him completely. Left to look on his own, Alan spots something, one magic beast with the location actually marked. The adventurer, Raven, tells him, "That thing is way beyond what any adventurer can handle. It gets turned over to the knights." Alan asks without missing a beat, "Is that the White Dragon?" Raven looks at him with tired eyes. "Even the entire Knight Order can't bring it down. To defeat a white dragon, you'd need the strength of a true hero, at minimum." Their conversation is cut short when Raven's companions arrive, but Alan figures he's gotten enough to work with. His next move is clear. Find a chance to leave the city and test the magic beasts around here for himself. Some time has passed since Alan joined House Grungel. Most days he practices magic alone in the attic, and otherwise tends to Cecil's daily needs and personal care. The food served to the servants is nothing special, but honestly the Baron's family doesn't eat much better, which surprises Alan a little. The Baron and others have remarked on Alan's manners and composure more than once. The unfortunate part, though, is that Alan appears to have no talent. At that, Cecil looks up with a sly grin. "I have the mage talent, and my brother has the swordsman talent, you know." But the Baron cuts her off immediately, scolding her for showing off, because her words have made Thomas start to cry. Through tears, he apologizes to the Baron. He alone in this family has no talent. On this continent, talents tend to appear more commonly among commoners and serfs. To have 2 out of 3 children with talent in a noble family like the Grungels is already remarkably high. And so, after settling into his work for a while, Alan finally gets his first day off. Before dawn even breaks, he's already racing toward the city gates. When he reaches the north gate, the guards tell him he needs a travel pass to leave. Alan produces the crest of House Grungel. The moment they see it, their attitude shifts completely. All respect. Without another word of resistance, Alan steps through and beyond the city walls. The vast, endless wilderness stretches out before him. Alan's heart starts racing. This is the first time he has ever ventured out of a city alone. He can barely wait to start leveling up, but to stay out of serious trouble, he decides to start with G-rank magic beasts first. With that in mind, he heads to a forest 10 kilometers from the city and summons his hawk-type summon, Herc. Before sending him out to scout, Alan runs a quick test of Herc's intelligence. To his surprise, after being enhanced through leveling up, Herc can actually understand spoken commands, which makes giving orders a whole lot easier. While Herc searches, Alan keeps himself busy. Even though he's a summoner, Alan has no intention of sitting back in the rear. He straps on his short sword, and right on cue, Herc returns with a magic beast sighting. Alan can't help but be impressed. Scouting from the air is insanely efficient. Guided by Herc, Alan heads in the direction of the target. Though since he has no idea how far away the beast is, he makes a mental note to be more specific with his orders next time. He's still thinking it over when a cluster of magic beasts suddenly comes into view. Taking a closer look, Alan realizes they're goblins. At the same moment, the goblin pack spots him too. Without hesitation, Alan summons his lion-type summon Tama. With a successful activation of his skill, 5 massive lions materialize before the goblins, stopping them dead in their tracks. Alan is genuinely impressed. An E-rank summon really doesn't disappoint. But then again, being able to summon freely within a 50-meter range, that's just broken. If I wanted to, I could surround a target instantly. They take down the first goblin quickly, and Alan starts to think he might not even need to get involved himself. But that thought is barely finished before reality proves him dead wrong. A single strike from a goblin is enough to completely wipe out one of his summons. Alan grimaces. Relying on just one type of summon clearly isn't going to cut it. He needs to figure out what each of his summons can actually do, and fast. So he summons his insect-type summon, Hiwa, and immediately commands it to use its special skill. As glittering sleep powder rains down, the surrounding goblins begin dropping off to sleep one by one. Alan is thrilled. Hiwa can put out a highly versatile sleep effect that's incredibly useful. Now that he has a better handle on his summon skills, it's time to test whether his own throwing skills skills are effective against goblins. One throw later, Alan confirms what he suspected. His stone-throwing skill alone can't finish off a D-rank magic beast, a little disappointing. He has Tama sweep through and clean up the rest. Watching the experience numbers climb in his grimoire, Alan can barely contain himself. The experience here is so much higher than anything he got back in the village. On top of that, these magic beasts drop the magic stones he needs. He gets to work collecting them right away, to make the most of every minute. He sends Herc back out to scout for more prey while he gathers the stones. By the end of a full day of efficient hunting, Alan has taken down 80 goblins and 5 horned rabbits, earning himself 2 level ups. Along the way, he also gets a complete picture of Hiwa's special skill. First, the sleep effect doesn't land 100% of the time. Second, the skill can hit multiple targets at once. And third, when used against magic beasts 2 ranks higher, it takes multiple summons working together for the effect to land. He glances at his remaining magic stones, still some left, so he decides to push for a bit more. But no matter what command he gives Herc, the hawk refuses to budge. Alan is baffled. At first he wonders if Herc is just tired, but then another thought strikes him. Could it be that Herc can't see in the dark? Herc bobs his head in confirmation. Alan nearly loses it on the spot. His summon has night blindness? With no other option, Alan heads back to the city. And so, over the following month, every single day off, Alan sneaks out to the outskirts to hunt. His level climbs all the way to 12, and he upgrades his armor and weapons with the gold earned from hunting. This clean, satisfying rate of growth, Alan feels like he's in full protagonist mode. If only the pay from his attendant work were a bit better. Just as Alan is sneaking back to his room, a familiar voice calls out from behind him. "Alan, come with me." A chill runs down his spine. And sure enough, the steward leads him straight to the Baron. The Baron asks how he's been spending his days off. Alan knows he's under suspicion. His behavior this past month has been more than a little questionable. Better to be honest. Alan tells him straight. He has been going out to the wilds to hunt magic beasts. The Baron looks surprised. So Alan continues, "I am the son of Rodan the boar hunter. It would not be an exaggeration to say that hunting is what gives my life meaning." Alan figures that framing should land well with the Baron. And sure enough, after hearing Alan out, the Baron nods slowly. "I see. That makes sense. After all, you are the son of a hero." At that point, the steward asks what Alan has been doing with the horned rabbits he hunts. Alan blinks. He's not sure where this is going. The steward explains, selling hunted horned rabbits directly to a butcher for personal profit is not permitted. It would invite unwanted talk. However, House Grungel will purchase them from you at 1 silver coin each. Alan is overjoyed. Up until now, he had just been leaving the meat behind to save time. Now he can not only earn extra income from it, he can hunt magic beasts completely openly. And so, some time passes. Alan's next day off finally arrives. His plan for the day, take down 100 goblins and 5 horned rabbits. But at that moment, Herc suddenly comes flying back. Alan tells him to wait until he's done eating. But no sooner are the words out than Herc lets out an urgent, frantic cry. His unusual behavior puts Alan on alert, needing to know what's going on. Alan takes off after him. As they keep moving, something starts to feel wrong. His standing order was to stay within 3 kilometers, but they have clearly gone far beyond that. Then voices from a distance, unfamiliar ones. Alan notices signs of a recent struggle all around him. Following the voices, he spots a group of adventurers. The one in front is covered in wounds, but she is still standing, still shielding her companions. Then it hits Alan. He has seen these people before, at the Adventurers Guild. Without hesitating, he reaches for his iron ball. It's a custom-ordered projectile he had made at a weapon shop, far more powerful than any ordinary stone, landed on a vital point, and it can finish off a lower-ranked magic beast in a single hit. The adventurer stares in disbelief, and before she can even process what she just saw, Alan has already taken down a second magic beast. He moves to press the advantage, but the remaining goblins have wised up. One of them sacrifices an arm to block the iron ball. Alan sees it immediately. Throwing attacks won't work on them anymore. That said, he'd rather not summon his summons in front of strangers if he can help it. Looks like he's doing this himself. With that decided, he calls over to the adventurer. The one with the broken arm is yours, and charges straight at the rest. He had been deliberately avoiding direct combat up until now. Not because he was afraid of fighting up close, but simply because he didn't want to get his borrowed clothes dirty. When it comes to close quarters combat, he is far more capable than any of his summons. On the other side, the adventurer finishes off the one-armed goblin, but when she rushes back to her companions, she finds Raven on the verge of death. Apparently, the goblins they just defeated weren't enough to push him past the divine trial. In a panic, she turns to Milsey and demands she use recovery magic. But the answer that comes back stops her cold. "I'm sorry, I have no magic power left." Despair falls over all of them. By this point, Alan has finished off the rest of the magic beasts and rejoins the group. Seeing that Raven's injuries won't hold until they reach the city, Alan speaks up. "I have a recovery herb on me." The 2 adventurers immediately beg him to save Raven, no matter the cost. Alan doesn't doesn't answer right away. Truth be told, he has never actually used the life herb that Dew produced, so he has no idea exactly what it does. But going by the name alone, it should heal something. With that, he applies it to Raven, and within moments, Raven's wounds close completely, good as new. His companions stare in stunned relief, seeing that the herb produced by his summon truly does restore health. Alan goes ahead and applies it to Raven's companions as well. After feeling that miraculous effect firsthand, all three of them exclaim, "You had 2 Miraz flowers on you this whole time?" Alan realizes they have the wrong idea. When his father was injured and used a Miraz flower, recovery wasn't immediate, but the life herb works the opposite way. It seems to restore a fixed amount of health instantly. Then Millsy turns to Alan and asks if he has a powerful talent. After all, he just took out 3 goblins completely on his own without even breaking a sweat. But his answer surprises them. "I have no talent on record." The 3 of them are taken aback, but just as quickly they tell him they want to repay him. Alan tells them keeping quiet about this is enough. He doesn't need anything else. But Raven still feels like that's not nearly enough. He asks again, is there truly nothing they can do for him? Alan thinks it over for a moment, then something comes to mind. He looks up. "I've been collecting magic stones. If you really want to repay me, then give me the magic stones from those goblins just now, plus 100 E-rank magic stones." Raven agrees without hesitation. With the magic stones handed over, the 3 adventurers head back to the city. Alan, for his part, plans to keep hunting. But first, there is something he needs to sort out. Why did Herc ignore his orders? He had clearly told him not to approach other humans. Was it because Herc wanted to help those adventurers, or did he simply feel sorry for them? Herc bobs his head. After witnessing his unusual behavior, it becomes clear Herc is different from his other summons. Herc has a will of his own, and that surprises Alan more than a little. He had always assumed summons were nothing more than tools, things that followed orders and nothing else. But now, it was clear they were something far more than that. Could it be that they were living beings created directly by the god of creation? From that point on, Alan adjusted the way he gave commands, treating his summons as beings with minds of their own. It made hunting noticeably easier than before. Before he knew it, late December had arrived. One day, while sweeping the courtyard, Alan suddenly noticed that the knight captain had returned to town and come to report the results of his mission to the Baron. They had successfully completed the Lord's orders to hunt down a bandit gang and magic beasts. To reward his bravery, the Baron invited him to stay for dinner. Over the meal, the conversation turned to Alan's own hunting. When the knight captain heard that Alan could catch 5 horned rabbits a day, his expression shifted, just slightly. He recovered quickly, then told Alan that Krina's village had completed its hunting quota without a hitch. Thomas, listening nearby, let out an impressed shout, but his excitement quickly faded, and he said with a pout, "Then why haven't we had any boar meat? We had it last winter." Alan found that odd too. By all accounts, the boars, hunted in October, should have arrived long ago. He recalled the Baron mentioning that the hunting orders had come directly from the king. Had all the boar been shipped to the royal capital? The thought made Alan almost feel sorry for Thomas. The Lord's own son had a harder time getting meat than the serfs. Just then, Thomas suddenly turned to Alan and said, "Next time you go hunting, bring back a giant white stag." Cecil raised an objection, but after Thomas talked her around, she eventually agreed. Seeing that, Alan had no choice but to go along with it. The Baron and his wife heard the whole exchange as children talking nonsense, and thought nothing of it. What they didn't expect was that Alan took it seriously. After 2 months of efficient grinding, taking on a C-rank magic beast shouldn't be a problem. That said, it was still 2 ranks above what he'd been hunting, so it would be safer to use a special approach. So he put Dao's taunt skill to use, successfully luring the giant white stag into a pit trap he had dug in advance. Looking at the helpless creature before him, Alan was eager to finish the job. Still, even with the stag pinned down, it took him quite a while to bring it down. He couldn't help muttering to himself, "Only 2,500 experience? That's barely worth it. I'd be better off grinding goblins. Looks like I'll need to ask the Baron for better pay." Sometime later, screams suddenly rang out across town. A magic beast had appeared. To protect his family, the Baron ordered all attendants to arm themselves and hold on until the knights arrived. While everyone stood on the edge of despair, a familiar figure suddenly crawled out from beneath the magic beast and announced, "By order of young Master Thomas, I have brought back the giant white stag." The Baron turned to Sebastian beside him and said, "Defeating a C-rank magic beast alone at only 8 years old, someone with that kind of power simply cannot be without talent. We need to look into this more carefully." After that incident, Alan received a new assignment from the Baron, a weekly hunting shift. His pay was raised to 100 silver coins, not a fortune, but it meant he could go hunting twice a week now. For a while after that, Alan settled into a routine of servant work and hunting shifts, until one day in March, Cecil suddenly dragged Alan to the airfield, saying they were going to meet her brother, who normally lived in Academy City. Alan thought to himself, he just hoped the 2 siblings weren't too much alike, otherwise he'd have his hands full. Then, with a great rumble, an enormous airship descended. Seeing it up close made Alan even more curious curious about how a magic ship actually flew, though he had to admit, the technology of this kingdom was more advanced than he'd expected. While Alan was still turning that thought over in his mind, a handsome young man suddenly called out to Cecil. Cecil immediately ran toward him. After a brief exchange of greetings, Mihei suddenly noticed Alan standing nearby and struck up a conversation with him. His polished, refined, noble bearing made Alan genuinely wonder, was this really Cecil's brother? Their personalities were nothing alike, yet somehow the two of them got along remarkably well, which surprised Alan more than a little. After some time out hunting, Alan returned with a large haul of food. The storage skill was convenient, but anything past a certain size simply wouldn't fit, and that gave Alan a bit of a headache. Walking through the streets loaded down with magic beasts was far too conspicuous. Back at the Baron's estate, Alan had been heading straight for the kitchen. When he stopped halfway, Mihei was in the courtyard sparring with the night captain. Alan's excitement spiked immediately, but just as he settled in to watch, the night captain said, "That's enough for today." The two of them fell into conversation. At that moment, Cecil noticed Alan had returned. She went over to check his haul. Seeing the sheer number of magic beasts he'd brought back, Mihei grew curious about Alan's abilities and spoke up. "If you don't mind, would you be willing to spar with me?" The question caught Alan off guard. Meanwhile, the night captain glanced at the Baron, then handed Alan his weapon and said a little friendly sparring couldn't hurt. Alan had little choice but to agree. His stats were tuned for hunting though, so he wouldn't be fighting at full strength. Then again, there probably wasn't much need to change that. At the night captain's signal, the mock battle began. Alan made the first move, faced with what looked like a frail young noble. He decided to hold back and avoid hurting him, but Mihei deflected the attack with ease and immediately turned from defense to offense. His strength was overwhelming. Alan could do nothing but stand his ground and block. His speed was just as shocking. Trying to turn the tide, Alan raised his Mithril greatsword overhead, aiming for a crushing downward strike. What happened next left him stunned. Mihei stopped the blow with a single hand. The night captain wasn't surprised in the least. Mihei had spent a year training in Academy City. There was simply no way he could lose to someone who had never been there. With a sharp, clear crack, the match came to an end. The result was an overwhelming victory for Mihei. Even so, Mihei was generous in praising Alan's skill. Cecil and Thomas crowded in, asking why Mihei had gotten so much faster. His answer, he had cleared a dungeon over the summer break. Fail to do that, and you get expelled. On top of that, he had received personal instruction from Sword Saint Taberk. That caught Alan off guard. He hadn't expected Academy City to have a Sword Saint. Under that kind of pressure, even a one-star swordsman could grow 100 times faster than normal. Alan said to Mihei, "Next time you come back, can we spar again?" Mihei hadn't seen that coming, but he agreed without hesitation. On one condition, he hoped Alan would look after his sister from now on. Alan said that was no problem. The words had barely left his mouth before he realized he'd been played. Did that mean he'd be Cecil's attendant for the rest of his life? He needed to find a way to quit his servant job as soon as possible, without embarrassing his father. Not long after Mihei returned to Academy City, Viscount Krina paid a sudden visit to the Baron's estate. From the way they spoke to each other, it was clear the two men had no love lost between them. But since a Viscount outranked a Baron, Baron Grungle had no choice but to greet him with a smile. Eyeing the boar meat on the table, Krina couldn't resist a snide remark. "Meat, out here in the middle of nowhere? I suppose you must have been holding some back during the hunts." That rubbed Alan the wrong way. Word was it was Krina who had pressured the king into raising the hunting quota in the first place. The Krina domain and the Grungle domain sat on opposite sides of the White Dragon Mountains. Both houses had Mithril veins, but since the White Dragon was currently nesting on the Grungle side, only House Krina could mine Mithril at present. The White Dragon moved to the other side every 100 years, so the two domains had long been rivals over the dragon's territory and Mithril mining rights. While Alan was still thinking this over, Baron Grungle finally asked Krina what had brought him here today. The answer came, "Oh, nothing much. My youngest daughter just had her appraisal results come in, so I thought I'd let you know. I'm afraid she came back with no talent." "How unfortunate for you, Baron Grungle. 2 out of your 3 children actually have talent." The Baron fired back, clearly furious. "And you have one with talent too. You still have to fulfill the obligations of a nobleman, don't you?" The exchange left Alan completely confused. Why would someone be happy about a child having no talent? And what exactly were these noble obligations they kept mentioning? A full year had passed since Alan began serving House Grungle. Throughout that time, he had used every day off and every hunting shift to steadily build up his gear and experience, pushing his level to 24. But he had hunted well over 10,000 goblins by now, and D-rank magic beasts outside the Grungle domain were growing scarce. To keep leveling up, Alan decided to try his luck against C-rank magic beasts, with Herc scouting from high above. He quickly spotted a lone target. After a careful look, Alan realized with surprise that this C-rank magic beast was none other than the armor ant, the same creature that had once defeated Raven. Its body stretched over 3 meters long, which gave him pause. But you don't walk away from easy prey. With that, Alan sent his summons charging at the armor ant. One strike in, he found himself stunned. Their attacks weren't leaving a scratch. The armor ant, on the other hand, was wiping out his summons without any effort. Time to change tactics. Alan called out Hiwa and had them scatter sleep powder over the armor ant. The armor ant dropped unconscious almost immediately. Alan was overjoyed. He special skill worked even on a C-rank magic beast. He didn't know how long it would last, so he had to finish this fast. Alan hammered the armor ant's joints with his short sword. He figured his 438 attack power would make quick work of it, but the shell was far harder than he'd expected. His blows barely made a dent. Then the armor ant began to stir beneath him. Alan went all out. After a grueling struggle, he finally brought the C-rank beast down. Just as he moved to retrieve its magic stone, Alan found he couldn't cut through the creature's body. All that effort for nothing. Furious, Alan crossed the armor ant off his hunting list on the spot. After searching for a while longer, Herc found another type of C-rank magic beast, smaller than the armor ant, but still standing 2 meters tall. It was the half-orc, a C-rank magic beast. Alan noticed that magic beasts seemed to need sleep too. Then he couldn't be blamed for a surprise attack. With a startled howl, the half-orc jolted awake. Alan was relieved. Tama's attacks were drawing blood, but the moment he thought that, all 3 of his summons were wiped out in a single blow. The half-orc turned its gaze directly on Alan, but before it could attack, Alan had already summoned a fresh wave of summons. He was going to overwhelm it with numbers. And so, after a brutal war of attrition, the half-orc was finally overtaken by sheer numbers, and fell before Alan. With the magic stone retrieved, Alan decided the half-orc would be his new hunting target going forward. But Alan knew he still had a long way to go. He had just lost to Mihei, who had only spent a year in Academy City, to say nothing of the Knight Captain and Vice Knight Captain, who were full Academy graduates. In this kingdom, Academy graduates were extraordinarily powerful. An elite, making up less than 1% of the total population, playing on Hell mode. If he wanted to match their strength, he would need far more experience. With that in mind, Alan pressed his advantage and kept hunting half-orcs. After a full day of hunting, Alan had taken down 15 half-orcs and 1 armor ant. The experience he gained was exactly the same as killing 100 goblins. He was thrilled, and had just decided to make half-orcs his primary target from now on, when Cecil suddenly brought him to her private classroom that day, and told him to mind his manners when speaking to the teacher. As it turned out, Cecil was celebrating Alan's first full year as an attendant by letting him attend class with her. During the lesson, the teacher asked Alan if there was anything he'd like to know. Having a chance to get his questions answered made Alan genuinely happy. He had been desperate to know, what did it actually take to use magic? After all, both his intelligence and magic power were growing at S rank, so did that mean he could use magic too? But before he could finish, Cecil cut in with a remark of her own. The teacher stepped in, saying that since today's student was Alan, he was happy to give a brief explanation of the conditions for using magic. First and foremost, using magic required talent. Without it, learning magic was simply impossible. That caught Alan off guard. He hadn't expected that even hard work and study couldn't make up for it. The teacher added, even with talent, some people struggle to actually produce magic, like young lady Cecil. That opened the door for Alan to get a jab in. To save face, Cecil told the teacher to bring out the crystal, and immediately pressed her hand against it. The crystal on the table blazed with a brilliant light. Cecil looked very pleased with herself. That's proof I can use magic. Alan said he wanted to try too. The teacher's response, it can't hurt to see for yourself. Alan wanted to test whether a summoner could also use magic, but when he placed both hands on the crystal, nothing happened. The crystal sat completely still. He pushed with everything he had, and still, not even a flicker. The teacher gave his verdict. As expected, Alan cannot use magic. Those words hit Alan like a gut punch. Then what was the point of giving him all that intelligence? His stats looked exactly like a mage's. Was he really supposed to fight with a sword? This class was starting to feel like a bad joke. After picking up the things Cecil needed, Alan had been planning to head straight back to the Baron's estate, but the streets suddenly erupted into chaos. Before he could figure out what was happening, a group of familiar faces came into view. Alan ran over and asked Raven what was going on. The answer, a B-rank magic beast, Magukuru, has appeared out of nowhere at the south gate. Alan asked if they were going to fight it. Raven looked at him like he was joking. That thing can only be taken down by the Knight Captain, the strongest fighter in the domain, but as luck would have it, neither the Knight Captain nor the Vice Knight Captain is in town. They're both away on a mission. All they can do now is help evacuate civilians and try to keep casualties as low as possible. Alan wasn't surprised. Most adventurers in town were ordinary people without talent. Against a B-rank magic beast like Magukuru, there was nothing they could do. That was when a bold idea took shape in Alan's mind. He wanted to take on the B-rank magic beast himself, just to see if he was strong enough to bring it down. After a short sprint, Alan reached the south gate. The scene had already descended into total chaos. Wounded were being carried into the city in a steady stream. Adventurers and soldiers outside the gate were shouting at the guards to close it. They couldn't let that thing get inside, but a merchant was pleading with everyone to wait. His cart was still outside. Alan had already pushed through to the outside, but when he actually laid eyes on Magukuru, the sheer terror of the creature stopped him cold. He found himself wondering whether he could really defeat a B-rank magic beast standing over 5 meters tall. While he was still hesitating, cries for help rang out from inside the cart. a mother and daughter, trapped. Not a single soldier or adventurer moved to help. But Alan was different. He pushed the fear aside and focused only on getting those two out of there. Alan seized his moment and drove the iron ball hard into Magukuru's left eye. The hit landed, and Magukuru's rage ignited. But even so, Magukuru refused to move away from the cart. Seeing that, Alan had no choice but to get closer and taunted out loud. That death wish move sent a wave of shock through everyone watching. Magukuru took the bait and shifted its attention. With the creature locked onto him, Alan went to switch his stats for better evasion, but his magic power hadn't recovered yet. Magukuru was already behind him, swinging down with a crushing blow. It moved so fast that everyone watching held their breath. Fortunately, Alan dodged just in time and came away unscathed, but when he got back to his feet, what he saw next shook him all over again. Magukuru wasn't pursuing him. It just stood there, making a sound that could only be described as mocking laughter. Alan understood immediately. This creature didn't see him as a threat. It was toying with him and enjoying every second of it. "You dare look down on me? You're going to regret this." With those words, his magic power finally finished recovering. He made the stat switch immediately. With his speed boosted, Alan broke away from Magukuru and sprinted hard toward the forest. The onlookers assumed Alan was using himself as bait to draw the beast away from the city. In truth, his real goal was to keep his summons out of sight. Once he was far enough from town, Alan prepared to fight back. But before Hiwa could release the sleep powder, Magukuru swiped it out of the air in one blow. Alan hadn't seen that coming. He summoned Hiwa again, but the same thing happened. After running for what felt like an eternity, Alan finally managed to shake Magukuru off. Despair settled in as he took stock of the situation. Every status effect he'd tried was completely useless against Magukuru. There was no way he could win. He would have to level up more before seeking revenge. With that decided, Alan turned back toward town. But right then, that infuriating laughter echoed out from behind him once more. He looked back. Magukuru had caught up. There was nothing to do but run again. Along the way, he ran into C-rank half-orcs and the troublesome armor ants he'd struggled with before. But in front of Magukuru, they were like paper, torn apart in an instant. And so, after 2 days and 2 nights of running for his life, Alan finally shook Magukuru for good and made it back to town. The moment he saw the guards, his body gave out beneath him. He collapsed. The guards rushed over to check on him and called out for someone to fetch a doctor. Sometime later, Alan finally opened his eyes. Cecil looked at him with worry written all over her face. "Alan, are you all right? You've been asleep for 2 whole days." Seeing that familiar face, Alan felt a wave of quiet relief wash over him. Looks like he'd made it back alive, but barely a moment passed before Sebastian, the butler, said calmly, "Good, you're awake. Go give the Baron your report when you're ready." Alan had expected a scolding, but when he laid out everything that had happened over those 3 days, not only did the Baron not blame him, the Knight Captain personally thanked Alan for protecting the city in their absence. The Baron then had Sebastian bring out 20 gold coins and explained that 10 were a reward for his bravery, and the other 10 were from the family he had saved. Alan was overjoyed. With that kind of money, he could finally buy a proper weapon. He thanked the Baron without hesitation. After a few days of recovery, Alan went back to hunting. This time, with his new weapon in hand, he could finally cut through the armor ant's shell and retrieve its magic stone. And during the ordeal of Magukuru, he had made another discovery. Newly summoned, summons inherited the memories of their predecessors. In other words, summons could retain all their knowledge and keep growing, just like him. But this continent was home to D-rank creatures as large as wyverns, savage goblins, C-rank magic beasts no adventurer could face alone, and B-rank beasts that spelled despair for any human who faced them. A full year later, the eldest son of House Grungel finally came home again. As they had agreed, it was time for a rematch. Alan had pushed his level all the way to 28 in preparation, but knowing Mihei had been growing 100 times faster, Alan figured caution was the right call. The two of them squared off, but even after switching his stats, Alan found himself on the back foot. Cecil watched with a puzzled look. Did Alan actually get weaker? The words had barely left her mouth when the fight came to an end. Alan was far from satisfied, but he had no choice but to admit defeat. Everyone crowded around to congratulate Mihei. His response, "Not at all. Alan has gotten much stronger too. Knowing someone like you is watching over Cecil, I can rest easy." Later at the dinner table, when Mihei heard about Alan's encounter with Magukuru, his jaw nearly dropped. "I can't believe you actually escaped from that thing." Thomas leaned over and asked Mihei, "What about you? Could you have beaten it?" Mihei shook his head. The conversation was still going when a soldier suddenly burst into the room, breathless with panic. The Baron immediately asked what had happened. The answer froze the room. "The White Dragon is on the move." The Baron's composure shattered in an instant. He demanded to know if the report was certain. The soldier confirmed it without hesitation. An adventurer had spotted the White Dragon flying toward the Crenil side. Hearing this, the Baron can barely contain his excitement. After all this time, he says, it's finally on the move. He asks the Knight Captain to investigate the secret mining camp, eager to resume operations as soon as possible. The Knight Captain cautions that this cannot be rushed. First, they need to confirm where the White Dragon has settled, then survey the area around all 4 quarries. Over the past 100 years, the foothills of the White Dragon Mountains, had become overrun with settlements of high-ranking goblins and half-orcs. Just confirming the current situation would take several months. The Baron sighs and says, "Then I'll leave it in your hands." Despite the mountain of problems still ahead, the news of the White Dragon moving on fills the whole household with excitement. Alan's expression, however, tells a very different story. If the Knights launch a full extermination campaign after their investigation, won't they end up stealing a huge amount of EXP that should be his? He'd better get ready before that happens. Fortunately, after 2 years of steady grinding, his synthesis skill has finally reached level 5. This unlocks the ability to summon D-rank magic beasts, and on top of that, he has gained a brand new skill. Curious about what it does, Alan activates the share skill on his summon, Herc. To his amazement, 2 separate views appear in his mind at once. One is his own field of vision, the other is exactly what Herc sees. And it goes even further than that. He can also share the summon skills. But before the excitement even settles, Alan notices something strange. His command range is supposed to be limited to 50 meters, yet Herc is clearly far beyond that limit. Can the share skill simply ignore distance? It's like a player controlling multiple characters at once. The catch is that it only works on summons with an intelligence stat above 100, but there's no cap of just 1. Each additional summon linked by the share skill costs 200 points of intelligence, with his intelligence approaching 1200. That means he can control up to 6 summons simultaneously. Now that he has a handle on the skill, it's time to take a look at what D-rank summons he can call up. A few of them are a bit unusual, but overall the lineup is solid. Nearly all of them have intelligence stats above 100. That means every summon except Butter Potato is eligible for the share skill. That's when a bold idea strikes him. Maybe his summons can hunt on their own, without him being there at all. To test the theory, Alan tracks down a few K-ants, and uses the share skill to direct his summons through the fight remotely. Sure enough, just as he hoped, the 2 summons make short work of the magic beast in front of them. It's not a one-hit kill, but they take down the K-ants entirely on their own. That settles it. Remote control hunting is absolutely viable. For scouting, Hero and Herc can take turns keeping watch around the clock. Fisher's special move, Splash Leap, can boost the evasion rate of the whole squad, and with Bill holding down both offense and defense, they won't lose even against C-rank magic beasts. Better yet, the share skill doesn't cut off even when he's asleep. Summon them once and the EXP just keeps rolling in. With his summons deployed and ready, Alan heads out of the forest. He can't help marveling at just how incredible the share skill really is. Taking in the simultaneous viewpoints of 8 summons feels completely natural. How did this class suddenly become so absurdly overpowered? Then again, with a range this massive, there have to be other ways to put it to use. Another idea begins to take shape in Alan's mind. After a while spent flying, Alan's summon finally arrives over Krina village. Looking down at the 2 figures below, Alan feels a quiet wave of nostalgia wash over him. But before he can linger in that feeling, another young figure catches his eye. It's Matthew, Alan's younger brother. Seeing him, Alan decides to swing by the family home for a look. The moment the summon takes off, Alan spots his father out in the fields, working the land. Following along, the summon glides back toward the house. Seeing how much his little sister Mira has grown, Alan finds himself marveling all over again. Then Trisha hears something near the window. When she looks over, a single gold coin is sitting on the ground. At that very same moment, Alan, watching from far away, can't help but murmur to himself, this skill really is something else. After 6 months of investigation, the Knights have pieced together a clear picture of what surrounds the quarries. Just as they feared, not a single trace of human activity remained in the White Dragon Mountains over the past century. The entire region had become a nest of magic beasts. Not just the 4 quarries, even the secret gold mine had been seized by monsters. Even reopening the quarry closest to the city would take a minimum of 3 years. The Baron is stunned, and the worry sets in fast. He urges the Knight Captain to move as quickly as possible. After receiving a firm reply, the Baron then asks about the situation in Viscount Corneille's territory. The Knight Captain explains that they had tried to forcibly mine the Mithril ore, which enraged the White Dragon and cost many lives. Hearing this, Alan quietly breathes a sigh of relief. It's a good thing he never sent a summon to spy on the White Dragon. The Baron says, if he can't mine it, there's a good chance he'll do something reckless. We'd better keep a close eye on his movements. Alan reads between the lines. The Knights are about to launch a full-scale extermination campaign, but he has spent the past 6 months preparing for exactly this. He plans to leave and become an adventurer when he turns 12, but that's still 2 years away. As a way of repaying the Baron, he intends to help speed things along, and there's no way he's letting the Knights hog all the exp. At the foot of the White Dragon Mountains lie goblin and half-orc villages. Deeper within the mountains, massive K-ant nests burrow through the rock, and in each stronghold, a leader waits. Playing it safe, Alan decides to start by taking on a goblin village. The goblins and half-orcs he had been grinding during his leveling runs all seem to have come from this same village. The thought of goblin children living in the settlement gives Alan a moment's pause. But once he finishes scouting the place out, that hesitation disappears. Human bones are scattered throughout the goblin village. It's a brutal reminder of something Alan already knew deep down. This is not the world he came from. If he doesn't wipe out the source of these monsters, more people will die. There is only one thing to do: eliminate every last one of them. With that, Alan summons Fisher and has him cast Splash Leap on the rest of the squad. Under the buff, both Bill and Speeda gain a boost to their evasion. With everything in order, Alan gives the order to advance. The moment the enemy is spotted, a goblin sentry slams the alarm bell. Bill doesn't even flinch. These are D-rank magic beasts after all. Still, while close combat is no issue, ranged attacks are a different story. Fortunately, Speeda is there to cover them. Any ranged threats get handled before they become a problem, with her keeping watch from above. The enemy archers have nowhere to hide. As the squad pushes forward, EXP notifications begin flooding the pages of Alan's grimoire. It's going so smoothly that Alan decides to step onto the battlefield himself. Then the sight that greets him stops him short. Goblins come pouring in from every direction, surrounding the squad in the blink of an eye. Against a goblin horde of over 300, the share skill squad alone won't be enough. Good thing I'm actually here, Alan mutters, and summons additional summons to the field. He can't micromanage each one directly, but he can issue attack commands, and that's enough. Sensing the tide turning, some goblins try to flee the village, but Alan's summons have already sealed every exit. With the numbers gap now closed, the battle quickly becomes one-sided. Total annihilation of the goblin force is only a matter of time, just as victory feels within reach. A deep, rumbling growl rises from somewhere on the battlefield. A creature far larger than any ordinary goblin steps forward. This is the ruler of the village, the Goblin King. Alan's eyes light up. Finally, the boss shows up, but his squad has already taken down thousands of C-rank magic beasts. The Goblin King doesn't stand a chance. With a final shriek, the Goblin King crumbles before Bill. Alan has his summons drag all the goblin bodies to the village square. Then he gets to work collecting magic stones. After half a day of cleanup, he finally recovers every last one. Staring at the mountain of goblin remains piled before him, Alan figures he'd better deal with this. He reaches into his storage and pulls out a burning torch and sets the pyre alight. With that, the goblin village is fully cleared. Not knowing the proper burial customs of this country, Alan decides to leave the rest of the cleanup to the knights. His plan is to clear 4 goblin villages this month, then take on the half-orc settlements. While the hunt continues at full throttle, good news arrives for the household. Mihei has successfully graduated from Academy City. Cecil heads out early in the morning to meet him, but when they finally meet, Alan notices that something is off about Mihei's expression. Cecil picks up on it too. Before she can ask what's wrong, Mihei turns to Alan and says, "I want you to come at me with everything you've got. One more sparring match." Alan had already been thinking the same thing, but this year feels different, somehow. Back at the Baron's estate, the two of them face off as they do every year, with everyone watching, determined to win this time. Alan adjusts his stats to peak condition. While he's still focused on his preparations, Mihei speaks. "Alan, thank you." With those words, the match begins, just like every year before. Alan strikes first, but this time, he's twice as fast as last year. Yet to his surprise, Mihei blocks it. Alan mutters under his breath, "Are you serious? He blocked that?" From that first exchange, Alan can tell that Mihei's speed still exceeds his own. To break through, Alan pushes his speed even further. Cecil and Thomas gasp. Alan is actually overwhelming Mihei. The Knight Captain sees it differently. Mihei may be on the defensive, but not a single one of Alan's strikes has landed. Alan can't figure it out. The speed advantage is clearly his, yet every attack gets blocked. Has Mihei already read every move he's going to make? Mihei finds the gap between Alan's strikes and sends Alan's weapon flying with a single blow. The Knight Captain calls the match. The loss stings. While Alan is still piecing together what went wrong, Mihei says to him, "That's what I'd expect from House Grungle's top hunter. This year, I barely won." With that, Mihei walks straight toward the Baron, and the two of them begin talking quietly. Alan watches and can't help but wonder, why didn't he shake hands this year? He's still turning it over in his mind when Cecil steps up behind him. "Alan, you've gotten stronger, but you're still no match for Mihei. Don't let that get you down though, because now that he's graduated from the academy, he'll have all the time in the world to train you in swordsmanship." But before the words have even settled, Mihei calls both Cecil and Thomas over to him. He looks at them and says, "For the next 3 years, I have to fulfill my noble's duty. I won't be able to come home for a while. I'm sorry for the sudden news. I know this is a lot." Cecil and Thomas immediately ask what this duty is, and when he leaves, his answer, "I can't say what it is. I leave tomorrow." Cecil struggles to accept it, but one look at her parents' faces tells her that even they have no say in the matter. Mihei gently tries to comfort Cecil. He promises to write to her while he's away, and swears he will be home when the 3 years are up. Alan thinks this all seems a bit dramatic. Isn't this just a job assignment after graduation? But that thought barely forms before something feels off. He vaguely recalls hearing two of the domain lords mention the noble's duty once before, and it didn't sound like anything good. Did the Baron know all along that it would come to this? This is clearly far more serious than it first appeared. The atmosphere inside the Grungel estate is suffocating. Mihei is about to leave to fulfill his noble's duty. No one fully understands what that means, but the fact that he stands before them in full armor makes it clear he is heading somewhere dangerous. As much as Cecil doesn't want to let him go, she forces herself to stay strong so he won't worry about her. "I'll be waiting for you," is all she says, with a final farewell to everyone in the household. Mihei walks toward the door, but when he reaches Alan, he stops. Without a word, he pulls Alan into a tight embrace. Then, in a quiet voice close to Alan's ear, he says, "I'm leaving Cecil in your hands. Please, protect her for me." The words leave Alan stunned and confused, and through the embrace, he feels it. Mihei is trembling ever so slightly. With Alan's questions still unanswered, Mihei sets off on his journey. Watching the carriage slowly disappear into the distance, Alan quietly thinks to himself, "By the time you return, I'll probably already be gone from this place. But for as long as I serve here as an attendant, I will keep the promise I made to you." Time passes. The goblin presence in the White Dragon Mountains has been almost entirely wiped out, and Alan's level has climbed to 35. He feels it. It's time to take on the B-rank magic beast, the half-orc king. To get there first, he arrives at the half-orc village a full day ahead of the knights. He plans to use the same tactics that worked in the goblin villages, a pincer attack from front and rear. This time, to deal with ranged fire and the half-orc king specifically, he summons the bronze statue. With everything set, Alan orders the advance. Their approach quickly draws the attention of the half-orc sentries, who move into combat positions without hesitation, even though the half-orcs are C-rank. In a one-on-one fight, Alan's share skill squad clearly has the edge. Seeing this, the half-orc guards on the walls reach for their ranged weapons, but with the bronze statue standing guard, their attacks can't touch Alan. His summons, however, aren't so fortunate. Still, arrow fire alone isn't enough to finish them off in one shot. As long as the damage they take stays below the threshold, his summons can keep fighting without ever tiring. With that in mind, Alan summons Spida and sends him straight for the enemy archers. Spida's web attack quickly pins down the guards on the walls. With the threat ahead neutralized, Alan orders the advance, but before they even reach the gate, alarm bells ring out from all around. Half-orcs come crashing toward them like a wave, a mass of bodies surging from every direction. Alan's blood pumps. "Every last bit of that XP is mine." Alan summons Unleash Carnage. He issues the advance order to his rear squad as well. Taking down a half-orc takes a bit longer than a goblin, but the progress is steady. Still, even after cutting the enemy numbers in half, the half-orc king is nowhere to be seen. Then, a flash of light bursts from the smoke ahead. Alan is confused. Then it hits him. Something is very wrong. He immediately commands the bronze statue to activate its guard ability. But before it even responds, a massive fireball explodes right in front of him. The sight sends a cold wave through Alan. He mutters to himself, "Was that a magic attack? Is that coming from the half-orc king?" But when he looks past the hill, that idea vanishes instantly. There is clearly more than one caster. The half-orcs have a magic unit. Alan can't help but grumble. "I can't believe the first magic I've seen since my reincarnation is being thrown at me by monsters. His summons are the ones tearing through the half-orc forces. They should logically be the primary target. So why are the half-orcs aiming at him in the rear? Or is the bronze statue their real target?" Alan barely has time to think it through before another wave of magic comes crashing in. Alan has the bronze statue raise its guard again. Under its solid defense, the fireball fails to break through the bronze statue's shield, but then, to Alan's shock, they switch to a saturation attack. Not only that, they spread their fire to target the rest of the summons as well. Under this ferocious barrage, not just the bronze statue protecting Alan, even his rear squad takes devastating hits. Furious, Alan reaches straight for an iron ball and hurls it at the orc mage. With a dull thud, the orc mage's EXP registers on Alan's grimoire. Their defense is clearly not their strong suit. Just as Alan moves to finish off the remaining two orc mages, they retreat behind the hill and keep lobbing fireballs from cover. With the half-orcs working in coordination, the tide on the battlefield starts to turn against Alan. Staring at the hellish scene unfolding before him, Alan mutters, "They still have at least 100 left. At this rate, my forces will be wiped out before he even lays eyes on the half-orc king. If there's any way out of this, it's one option: drop the defense and go all in on offense." He has enough magic stones stored to summon Bill 20,000 times, and he still has over 100 mana recovery fruits in reserve. He'll push through with these 30 summons until the very end. While the battle rages with no end in sight, one of the orc mages rushes to the chief's quarters and delivers the report. After hearing the orc mage's account, the half-orc king finally rises from his throne. He intends to deal with this bold intruder himself. With an earth-shaking roar, the half-orc king strides into the center of the battlefield. The crushing pressure radiating from his body sends a visible shiver down even Alan's spine. Staring at this magic beast, the same rank as Magukuru, Alan mutters, "He's got to be over 4 meters tall." Bill looks like a toy next to him. Alan is still working out a plan when the half-orc king suddenly lashes out at the nearby summons, and with a single axe swing, 2 bills are obliterated. Alan didn't see that coming. He had no idea the half-orc king's attack power was this high. To compensate, Alan applies buff enhancements as fast as he can summon new ones, but the rate he's losing summons far outpaces how quickly he can replace them. That's a serious problem. Before he can think of a solution, another fireball is already on its way. Alan has the bronze statue step in to block it, but the impact pushes the damage past the threshold. Seeing Alan without a shield, the orc mage seizes the gap between summons and launches another fireball directly at Alan. With no other option, Alan calls two bills to stand in front of him. The explosion tears through the air, and the shockwave sends Alan flying. He takes a serious hit, but thankfully, his storage still holds some life herbs crafted by Dao. Once he recovers, Alan takes stock of the situation. Against enemies this strong in both attack and defense, his confidence starts to waver, because to suppress their magic, he would need to break through the half-orc king's defenses, and right now, that's simply beyond him. Alan sighs. Looks like this is as far as I go, but the words barely leave his mouth before a familiar voice reaches him. Looks like you're having a rough time. The Knight Captain's arrival is the last thing Alan expected. Wasn't he supposed to arrive tomorrow? The Knight Captain explains that he spotted smoke in this direction and decided to come check it out early. But what exactly are you doing here? Alan puts on a guilty look. Just testing whether I could clear the half-orc village on my own. At that moment, the chaos on the battlefield, what appears to be monsters fighting each other, catches the Knight Captain's eye. A sinking feeling hits Alan. He summoned back all the bills, leaving the half-orcs completely baffled. The Knight Captain, however, doesn't seem to notice. He drops his scabbard and walks alone, straight toward the half-orc army. Alan watches, stunned. He didn't expect the Knight Captain to stand before the half-orc king without showing an ounce of fear. Alan had heard it before. Zenov was not only the strongest man in Grungle domain, but the only one who had ever defeated Magukuru in single combat. The Knight Captain speaks, calm and direct. The half-orc king is mine. The rest of the rabble, I'll leave them to you. Hearing this, Alan realizes that the Vice Knight Captain has also arrived on the scene. He could hang back and leech a bit more XP, but watching these two fight up close is a rare opportunity he can't pass up. With that settled, Alan fixes his eyes on both fighters. Alan can't help but worry about the Knight Captain charging in like this. Before the Knight Captain even reaches him, the half-orc king swings with everything he has. A blow so ferocious it splits the ground beneath the Knight Captain's feet. Yet it doesn't leave a single scratch. The Knight Captain catches it with one hand. The half-orc king can't believe what he's seeing. They can't help but recall his other title, Zenov the War Demon. While Alan is still reeling from the sight, the half-orc king has already rallied on the other side. After the exchange just moments ago, the half-orc king knows the man before him is no ordinary foe. He enters a berserker state and readies himself to attack. The Knight Captain takes the same stance. The two charge at each other, trading blows. But to the half-orc king's disbelief, even with everything he has, he fails to land a single scratch on the Knight Captain. Stung with embarrassment and rage, he tries again. The ferocity of their clash leaves Alan in awe. As expected of the Knight Captain, outmatched in size by so much, yet holding his ground without flinching. But the words have barely left Alan's mouth when he notices the Vice Knight Captain seems to be making his move as well. The orc mages respond immediately to his approach, continuing to hurl spells from behind the hills and the half-orc army. Taking in the situation, the Vice Knight Captain already knows. The greatest threats in this half-orc force are the orc mages. If he doesn't eliminate them first, they will slow down his ability to clear the field. With that in mind, he decides to go straight for the source. He closes the distance and immediately begins charging his attack. Before any half-orc can reach him, they are run through by his skill. And that's not all. Even the orc mages in the rear don't escape. The remaining two orc mages fire back immediately. But faced with those oncoming fireballs, the Vice Knight Captain doesn't flinch. With a single sweep of his spear, he splits every fireball clean in two. Though half-orcs keep rushing at him throughout, every last one is cut down the instant they come within reach of his spear. The fluid, effortless grace of it all leaves even Alan speechless. Meanwhile, after several exchanges, the half-orc king's movements begin to slow. The Knight Captain seizes the opening and delivers a full-force strike, cleaving the half-orc king clean in two. Now Alan finally understands why everyone calls him the War Demon. The Vice Knight Captain too has put his overwhelming power on full display. The technique he just used looks a lot like Krina's finishing move. If both a 1-star spearman and a 3-star sword saint can use it, does that mean every class can? Then again, the Knight Captain defeated the half-orc king without even using a skill. Alan is still marveling at this when Zenov suddenly walks over and asks him to help clear the remains nearby. The fact that Zenov hasn't asked him anything worries Alan, but he still asks whether he can keep some of the magic stones. Zenov says that's fine. Alan gets to work collecting. At that, Librant catches Zenov's eye with a quiet glance. After a while, Alan and the others finish clearing most of the remains. To prevent this outpost from being used by magic beasts again, Zenov plans to burn it to the ground once they finish up tomorrow. The hour is growing late, so Zenov invites Alan to make camp with them. As for the Baron, Zenov will handle the report. That evening at dinner, Zenov asks Alan whether he was the one who destroyed the goblin villages. Alan confirms it. Zenov then asks how many he's cleared, and the answer he gets is around 52. That catches the Knight Captain completely off guard. About 4 years ago, Zenov says, the capital started receiving large quantities of Aruba heron feathers from Krina village. Around the same time, that village doubled its giant boar hunts. As a reward for that, you became an attendant of House Grungel. But ever since you came to work at the estate, word kept coming in from outside the city. Magic beast corpses found with their magic stones missing. More recently, Someone has been beating the knights to it, clearing out most of the goblin villages and taking their magic stones first. There's no hard proof, but I'd wager that was all you. If that's true, then the appraisal ceremony that declared Alan talentless is deeply suspicious. Zenov had gone to question the priests who conducted it, but every one of them confirmed the same result. No talent detected. At the time of Alan's test, the appraisal crystal had indeed suddenly blazed with blinding light, but what appeared in Alan's talent field was nothing but a string of unreadable symbols. Combined with his stats all sitting at the lowest possible level, the priest recorded it as no talent. From watching you, I believe you do have a talent. Those animals fighting alongside you, that's your ability, isn't it? Alan realizes there's no hiding it anymore and comes clean. What surprises him is that Zenov doesn't press any further after hearing him out. I've already finished my investigation, Zenov says. The Baron has known about Alan's talent for some time now. My guess is, once he confirmed it and found out you love hunting, he made you the hunting hand. Alan feels like that tracks. After all, the Baron did give him a great deal of freedom after that. That makes Alan wonder, why has the Baron gone to such lengths for him? When the time is right, the Baron will tell you himself, Zenov replies. As for what happened today, if you want me to keep it quiet, I won't report it to the Baron, but in exchange, you'll keep me updated on your progress clearing monster villages. After all, we're working toward the same goal. And just like that, the two of them quickly reach an understanding. Alan even offers to scrub Zenov's back as a thank you for keeping the secret. But when he brings the hot water over, the sight before him stops him cold. Zenov's back is covered in countless scars. Alan finds himself wondering, what could this man have gone through to carry wounds like that? While he's still puzzling over it, Zenov speaks up. Do you enjoy hunting? The sudden question catches Alan off guard, but he answers quickly. I do. Clearing a divine trial never gets old, no matter how many times I've done it. Though speaking of which, scars heal when you level up. Has the Knight Captain really not gained a single level in 5 years? While Alan is still turning that over, Zenov murmurs quietly to himself, clearing a divine trial. And so the night passes. Early the next morning, Alan returns to the Baron's estate. What he doesn't expect is for Cecil to immediately put him in a chokehold the moment they meet. The Baron, for his part, issues no punishment, simply saying it's fine as long as Alan is safe. 2 more weeks pass, and Alan has finished all his preparations for raiding the half-orc villages. Having learned from his earlier mistakes, this campaign goes unusually smoothly. He defeats the half-orc king without too much trouble. Alan can't help but feel a surge of excitement. The strategy is completely viable. He sends 40 bills attacking the village from 4 directions at once, with prior orders to prioritize taking out the orc mages. Under the Sea of Bears tactic, crushing the half-orc king is only a matter of time. Alan also discovers that half-orc villages give 7 times more experience than goblin villages. But there's one more pressing task at hand, collecting magic stones from the fallen monsters. This raid cost him 120 D-rank magic stones. His tactics still need some refining, and so, after nearly 5 months of raids, Alan has destroyed over 20 half-orc villages. As promised, he reports into Zenov on schedule. The Mithril mining plan, originally projected to take 3 years, has been shortened to 2. Construction of the village with a mining site and smelter will begin next spring. Everything is going smoothly. Alan wants to spend 1 more year wiping out all the K-ant nests, so that by the time he turns 12, he can start his life as an adventurer. While Alan is still buzzing with excitement over that, a special visitor suddenly arrives at House Grungel, a royal envoy, representing the crown. The Baron has no choice but to receive them with full courtesy. After the usual pleasantries, the royal envoy signals to the guard behind him to produce a box, stating that delivering it personally to the Baron is the sole purpose of his visit. Inside the box is a letter, written by Mihei Grungel himself. The moment he hears this, the Baron's expression changes. Cecil and Thomas, however, look pleased. Finally, after half a year, he actually remembered to write home. But while the two of them are still wrapped in that relief, Alan notices something off. The Baron's face doesn't look right. Sure enough, a moment later the Baron cries out in shock, "When was this letter written?" The answer comes back, about 3 months ago. Sensing something is wrong with the Baron, his wife immediately snatches the letter from his hands. At the same moment, the royal envoy's expression turns cold. "Your son gave his life in service of his noble's duty. He has passed." The words hit the room like a thunderbolt. The Baron, completely unlike himself, shouts back, "This isn't what we agreed to. How did it come to this in just half a year?" Mihei had only just graduated from the academy. Is it because we're lower ranked nobles? Is that why he was sent somewhere dangerous? The envoy responds with perfect calm, "Shall I take that as a challenge to the crown?" At that, the Baron falls silent. The envoy finishes his remarks on the condolence payment, then states he has other domains to report to, and takes his leave. His manner infuriates Alan. That man walked in and out without a care in the world. Thinking back to Mihei's strange behavior before he left, Alan can't shake the feeling that Mihei had known this might happen all along. The news of Mihei's death deals a heavy blow to Cecil. She keeps demanding to know what happened. Left with no choice, the Baron sends everyone else out. He has things to say to Cecil alone. Alan finds himself puzzled, Why isn't Thomas being asked to stay? Time passes, and Cecil and the Baron have been talking behind closed doors for a long while. Just as Alan is still turning the question over in his mind, Cecil's voice suddenly breaks through the door. So he knew all along he might die? Was raising children only ever meant to send them to their deaths? And letting me take on an attendant before, that was out of guilt, wasn't it? With that, Cecil bursts out of the room. Alan happens to be right there when it happens, and he finds himself whispering inwardly, will Cecil one day share Mihei's fate? What is going on here? But after seeing the pain written across his face and recalling his earlier conversation with Viscount Krina, Alan has a rough sense of the answer. It seems some kind of chain binds nobles, one they cannot escape. A short while later, Alan and Sebastian approach Cecil's door, hoping to get her to eat something, but no matter how they call out, Cecil doesn't respond. The Baron says to leave her for tonight. He'll speak with her again tomorrow. As for Thomas, they'll tell him when the time is right. The night passes. The next morning, at breakfast, Rikeru mentions that people say House Scrungel has always been short-lived. The Baron's own parents and older brother all died young. The remark catches Alan's attention. But before he can ask for details, one of the attendants suddenly shouts, "Everyone, come quickly!" At the same moment, a maid comes running to the Baron in a panic, saying Cecil is not in her room. The Baron immediately orders everyone to search. During the search, Alan notices that Cecil's window is open. She may have climbed out through it. With that in mind, Alan quickly finds Sebastian and asks whether he can go outside to look for her. Sebastian gives him permission. Alan heads outside the estate and summons Herc, sending them out on a wide search of the city. Meanwhile, on the other side of the city, Cecil has been running for a long time. Her body is at its limit. She finds a corner at random and sinks down, clutching her butterfly hairpin. Her brother's face drifts into her mind. She cries softly, "I just want to see you one more time." Then, from right behind her, comes the crisp sound of footsteps. Realizing someone has followed her, she asks, "Are you here to take me back?" "Of course not," comes the reply. "I'm just following you as I always do. After all, I am Cecil's personal attendant." Cecil startles at that, but quickly says, "I want to be alone, so could you please just leave me be?" But the moment the words leave her mouth, her stomach lets out an embarrassing growl. She admits, red-faced, that there's nothing to be done. She hasn't eaten anything since the night before. Alan immediately pulls a stamina-restoring fruit from his infinite storage and says he left in a hurry and this is all he brought. It'll have to do. Cecil stares at it in surprise. "Where did you pull that from?" The fruit looks a bit strange, but she's so hungry that Cecil ends up eating it in big bites anyway. But it isn't long before Cecil starts sobbing again. She asks Alan, "Was he strong?" Alan says yes. After all, he never once managed to beat Mihei. At that, Cecil breaks down. If someone that strong couldn't survive, then I'm sure to die too. The words leave Alan puzzled once again. He's never heard of this kingdom being at war with anyone. So why does this sound like being sent off to battle? It falls to Alan to comfort her. Alan speaks up, "Cecil, what if we just left the city together right now? Forget all of this and go on a journey. I have more than enough funds for the road." But her answer is, "That's impossible." Alan quickly follows up, "Then let's just go home for now. When we turn 12, we can register as adventurers and travel together. How does that sound?" Cecil shakes her head. By that age, she'll be heading to the academy. Alan says, "Is there really any need to go? You can choose your own path in life." "Cecil, is there nothing you actually want to do?" The question leaves Cecil silent. After a moment's thought, Cecil picks up her hairpin and says there is something she wants to do. With that, she puts the hairpin back in her hair and asks Alan to take her home. On the way back, she thanks him, and so, after a while, the two of them make it safely home. Before Cecil can even apologize to her father, the Baron pulls her into his arms. Cecil breaks into tears. "I worried you." The Baron says it's fine as long as she's safe. And then, "Cecil, you don't have to worry about anything. We're about to begin mining Mithril, and once we offer the mining rights to the royal family, we should be able to buy your way out of the obligation." Hearing that, Alan finally understands why the Baron was in such a rush to start mining. If he had worked with the knights from the start, perhaps Mihei would never have had to fulfill the noble's duty at all. While Alan is still sitting with that regret, Cecil refuses her father's plan. She says she will fulfill her noble's duty. Since Mihei didn't run from it, she won't do anything to bring shame upon House Grungel either. And so another half-year passes. House Grungel returns to something close to normal. The half-orc villages have all been wiped out by the knights and Alan together. Barring any surprises, Mithril mining can begin after summer. But House Craniel's lack of movement has the Baron uneasy. As a precaution, the Baron asks Zenov to keep a close eye on their movements. With most of the magic beasts at the base of the mountain cleared out, Alan shifts his hunting focus to the K-ants. Cecil had mentioned she wanted to go hunting with him, but she could never manage a climb this steep. And besides, the Baron hasn't given his permission. After a long climb, Alan reaches his destination. He can't hold back his excitement. "Finally, I found the K-ant nest. Word has it the nest holds over 1,000 K-ants, and the queen who spawns them is somewhere inside." But that's all the information he he has. No adventurer has ever successfully cleared a K-ant nest before. Alan notices that the cave entrance is extremely narrow, which doesn't lend itself to large-scale combat with his summons, so he plans to thin their numbers before pushing inside. With that decided, he summons his summons, and has Fisher use its evasion ability. Alan intends to hang back in the shadows and direct his summons remotely, just as he did when clearing the half-orc villages. He knows far too little about the K-ant nest. A single mistake could be fatal. With that in mind, he directs his summons to advance. The moment the K-ant sentinels spot unfamiliar creatures approaching, they sound the alarm. Moments later, waves of soldier ants come pouring out of the narrow entrance. The sight fills Alan with excitement from the sheer number of them. It looks like the whole nest is pouring out at once. If he wipes them all out here, he can walk straight in and finish off the queen. Alan immediately commands all his bills to attack the K-ants. Progress is mostly smooth, and he identifies where the K-ants are vulnerable, but the kill rate is too slow. K-ants can't be taken down in a single hit. Coordinated attacks would be more effective. But bills can only hold simple commands in their heads, and mistakes keep creeping into the fighting. Fortunately, he comes up with a solution. Have Herc, with his higher intelligence, guide the bills. That raises the hunting efficiency considerably. Alan had assumed his relentless assault would clear the nest quickly, but a full month passes and he still hasn't broken through. By all logic, having killed over 2,000 K-ants, the numbers should have dwindled by now. But every time he comes back, fresh K-ants keep pouring out of the cave, and the bodies from before are gone without a trace. Is the queen eating the dead and laying new eggs from them? The experience gain is great, but with K-ants endlessly streaming out, he can't recover their magic stones. He needs to change his approach, otherwise he'll be at this forever. He asks the Baron to adjust his schedule so he can assault the nest for 2 full days without stopping. Yet even that isn't enough to clear the nest. Over the course of that month, he kills more than 5,000 K-ants, yet their numbers show no sign of shrinking. Just as he's agonizing over this, Alan suddenly notices no new K-ants are coming out of the nest. A wave of excitement surges through him. They've finally run dry. Now he can move on to phase 2, pushing inside the nest to eliminate the queen. If he leaves the queen alive, the ants will swarm back in no time. With that in mind, Alan summons Hero, who has night vision, and activates the share skill on them immediately. He then directs his summons to begin exploring the interior. As they push deeper, Alan is stunned to find the cave is not only enormous, but a labyrinth of twisting passages. One wrong turn leads to a dead end, where the remaining K-ants inside can pick them off. It's a serious headache. To improve efficiency, Alan has the bills support Hero. But the awkward problem is that bills don't have night vision. As long as Hero isn't wiped out, Alan can issue commands through Hero's line of sight, which is a workable fix for now. Meanwhile, another hero appears to have found the larva chamber. The place is packed wall to wall with eggs. Seeing this, Alan directs his bills to advance toward that chamber. His goal is to wipe out every last K-ant in the nest. That said, after a full day of searching, Alan still hasn't located every chamber in the nest. It's already past the time he should head back, but Alan doesn't want to let this chance slip away. Just as he's wrestling with that, a view suddenly catches his eye. Taking a closer look, Alan confirms it. The creature before him is the Queen K-ant. Excitement rushes through him, but his share skill can control at most 8 summons at once. That's nowhere near enough to challenge a B-rank magic beast. If he wants to grind her down, he'll need to switch tactics. With that resolved, Alan enters the nest himself and makes straight for the queen's chamber. Upon arrival, he pulls out an oil lamp and lights up the surrounding area. With proper visibility, he can issue commands to the bills directly without needing the share skill. But when he gets a close look at the Queen K-ant, he's taken aback. She is even larger than the half-orc king. Alan can't help but swallow hard, but he's already here, and he has no intention of leaving empty-handed. He gives the command to attack. Despite her fierce resistance, the sheer weight of numbers overwhelms her, and she is swallowed up in a sea of bills. Once the smaller ants are cleared, Alan turns his full attention to the queen. She clearly has no intention of going down without a fight. She swings her massive tail, sending 2 bills flying through the air, then she finishes them off with her razor-sharp mandibles. It's a tough situation, but Alan notices her attacks don't seem as powerful as the half-orc king's were. In that case, swarm tactics will wear her down sooner or later. The queen's resistance turns out to be far weaker than he expected. Without too much effort, his forces bring down the massive creature. Alan finds this puzzling. Defeating the half-orc king had cost over 200 bills, yet taking down the Queen K-ant took only 20 to achieve the same result. He sets about collecting proof of the kill, and in doing so, Alan discovers the secret behind the Queen K-ant's surprising weakness. To replenish her forces, the Queen K-ant had been laying eggs around the clock, day and night, all while starved of food and sleep. She had grown so weak that Alan cleared the nest by sacrificing only 20 bills. After some effort, Alan finally pried out her magic stone. Just as he raised the oil lamp to take a closer look, something in the corner of the room caught the light. He moved closer and found a strange glowing stone. Could this be the Mithril the Baron had spoken of? Early the next morning, Alan returned to the Baron's manor. Just as he had expected, the Baron was furious. Alan offered an immediate apology. For the past few months, I have been clearing the K-ant nest in the White Dragon Mountains. Yesterday, I finally located the Queen K-ant. With the interests of House Grungel in mind, I made the call to eliminate her on the spot, which is why I missed my return deadline. Nobody in the room believed a word of it. It dawned on Alan that the Baron and the others had no idea he was capable of clearing a magic beast stronghold on his own, so Alan led everyone out to the back courtyard and presented the Queen K-ant's armor shell. The crowd just stared back at him, blank-faced. Alan was puzzled. He couldn't understand why everyone looked so lost. The Baron turned to Zenov and asked whether what they were looking at was truly the Queen's armor. Zenov's answer came without hesitation. "I'm sorry, I can't tell. I've never seen the Queen myself." The Baron nodded in understanding. After all, conquering a K-ant nest was simply considered impossible. That left Alan genuinely confused. Zenov had the strength to destroy the Queen with ease, or so Alan thought. But Zenov explained, taking on that nest means accepting massive casualties. Even adventurers refuse to go anywhere near it. Frankly, I've never heard of anyone clearing a K-ant nest. The Night Order only targets goblin and half-orc villages. Cecil couldn't help cutting in. Are you seriously claiming you killed thousands of K-ants, navigated the entire dungeon, and defeated the Queen herself? Alan had to admit, clearing the nest without a scratch was probably only possible because he had his summons. Their disbelief was completely understandable. Luckily, he still had one more card to play. He reached into his pack and produced several glowing stones, stating he had found them inside the Queen's chamber. The Baron's eyes went wide. Mithril ore was not something you simply stumbled upon. Yet here it was. Solid proof that Alan might have actually cleared a K-ant nest. Zenov nodded in agreement. Even Cecil was taken aback. She let out a quiet murmur of disbelief. I had no idea Alan could already handle B-rank magic beasts on his own. Zenov asked Alan to mark the exact location of the K-ant nest, promising to send men to investigate. Alan replied, "In that case, I'll draw you a map of the interior as well." That left both of them speechless. There was simply no room left for doubt. As a reward for discovering the new Mithril vein, the Baron offered Alan a 30% share of the mining rights to the new site. Alan had no idea what that meant. Sebastian stepped in to explain, half of all Mithril mining revenue goes to the royal family. After deducting operating costs, what remains is the profit covered by the mining rights. The Lord takes 70% of that, and the remaining 30% goes to Alan. It's a very substantial sum. And so, after all that hard work, the Grungel domain was finally ready to mine Mithril once more. Alan was now 12 years old. The magic beasts within the domain posed no threat to him anymore, and with mining rights to his name, money was the last thing on his mind. But that was precisely the problem. He hadn't been reborn into this world to live a quiet, comfortable life. It was time to move forward. He planned to speak with the Baron that evening, but before he could act, the head attendant stepped up to him, requesting that he come to the hall at once. The royal envoy and Viscount Krina had arrived. Once the guests were settled, the Baron asked what had brought them here today. The royal envoy began by congratulating the Baron on the Mithril discovery, then produced a scroll announcing that the royal family had devised a solution to the cycle of boom and decline that both House Grungel and House Krina had suffered due to the White Dragon's movements. After reading it, the Baron slammed the scroll down. "You can't be serious. You want the two of us to jointly manage the White Dragon Mountains?" The royal envoy replied calmly. "If both families split the profits equally, neither will need to worry about the White Dragon's migration ever again. To put an end to a tragedy that has repeated for over a century, I had the Deputy Minister of Justice draft this contract personally. Viscount Krina has already signed. I expect the same from you, promptly." Alan thought to himself, they're just doing whatever they please. The Baron had no power to defy the royal family, yet something about this felt deeply wrong. He declined to sign, and stated that he needed to verify the matter with the royal capital first. The envoy's response dripped with contempt. "A mere Baron dares to question me. I see the Mithril has gone to your head. Every detail of today will be reported to the crown." With that, both men stormed out of the Baron's manor. The Baron stared at the scroll on the table and muttered quietly, the royal family would never propose something this absurd. He decided to wait for Zenov to return from the White Dragon Mountains, then travel together to the royal capital to verify whether this proposal was legitimate. This unexpected turn of events threw a wrench in Alan's plans. He was still turning the problem over in his mind when the sound of shattering glass came from upstairs, followed immediately by a maid's scream from the second floor. Alan's gut screamed danger. He bolted up the stairs at full speed, but by the time he arrived, it was already too late. Intruders had broken into the Baron's home, and they were kidnapping Cecil. Alan drew his short sword on the spot and lunged at the nearest attacker, only for a second man to block the strike. Alan had no choice but to deal with the man in front of him first and look for an opening to reach Cecil. What he hadn't counted on was just how dangerous the one-eyed bandit was. The man matched him blow for blow. To turn the tide, Alan broke off and created distance, quickly redistributing his stat points. As his mana recovered, he used Life Herb on the servant servant behind him, restoring their strength. Once he was ready, he charged at the one-eyed bandit again. With his stats now optimized, his strikes hit significantly harder than before, and he slowly began to take control of the fight. News of the intrusion reached the Baron, and he immediately dispatched knights towards Cecil's room. He had stalled too long. The second intruder, desperate to end things quickly, hurled a smoke bomb between the two fighters. The moment Alan breathed in a trace of the gas, something felt wrong, but it was already too late. His vision blurred, and Alan crumpled to the floor. When he opened his eyes again, Cecil was sitting directly across from him. He kept still, feigning unconsciousness. The bandits had taken him along as well. Surviving this had been pure luck. He couldn't afford to make such a basic mistake again. Fortunately, the bandits didn't know that a summoner could still fight as long as his eyes weren't covered. Through Chibi's eyes, Alan saw that they were inside what looked like a storage room, with 3 bandits seated behind him. A voice cut through the silence. Alan's heart jumped. He thought he'd been caught, but the speaker wasn't addressing him at all. He was talking to the 3 bandits. "Why did you bring back 2 brats?" One of the men answered, "The kid fights with a sword, and he's got black hair. Figured he could fetch a good price, so I thought." Before he could finish, Dagulak drove a fist into him. "Don't act without orders. There won't be a next time. If the black-haired one becomes a problem, kill him." With that, Dagulak left the room. Alan let out a quiet breath of relief. He could already tell that man outclassed all 3 bandits in the room combined. The moment he was gone, one of the bandits muttered, "Why did the boss hire someone like that?" The one-eyed bandit replied, "Dagulak came back from the front lines." Another man sneered, "You mean the guy who spent a whole year there and ran back with his tail between his legs?" The one-eyed bandit shot back, "Even so, who else here could go toe-to-toe with Zenov?" That shut them up. Zenov was the man who had held that fortress for 10 years. How could Dagulak possibly match him? Someone else spoke up. "Didn't Zenov end up losing his entire unit? Maybe he's not as impressive as everyone thinks." Their conversation left Alan completely lost. But one thing was now clear. This country was at war. After piecing together what he'd learned, Alan decided that waiting to be rescued was a long shot. Better to act than to sit and wait to die. The problem was, he had no weapons on him. It made more sense to avoid fighting and focus entirely on escaping. To do that, he first needed to figure out where they were. He sent out his summons to scout ahead, and what they reported back stunned him. This was no ship sailing on water. They were aboard a magic ship soaring miles above the ground. Alan took a moment to steady himself. The magic ship would have to descend at some point, which meant there was still a chance to escape. But first, he needed more information. With that thought in mind, he began scouting again. Before long, he located what appeared to be a dining area. The decor was lavish, and the room was filled with ordinary passengers of all ages. Alan was still wondering whether any of them could help, when a crude, grating laugh reached his ears. He took a closer look, and to his shock, Viscount Krina and the royal envoy were right there on the ship. A suspicion immediately formed in Alan's mind. Were these two the ones pulling the strings behind Cecil's kidnapping? At that moment, the envoy leaned back and spoke. "His Majesty is becoming a real headache, recommending someone from the academic faction as Minister of Justice. Honestly, our deputy minister is far more qualified for that post, and that wretched white dragon, relocating at the exact moment we needed our funds elsewhere. Fortunately, we've come up with a plan, and this little situation is the perfect chance to put that arrogant, low-ranking noble in his place." Viscount Krina agreed eagerly, already savoring the look of regret he planned to see on the Baron's face. Even so, the envoy voiced some concern about the signing ceremony. Viscount Krina waved it off. "That's exactly why we took the Baron's daughter. I've already sent a warning letter. Stay quiet and cooperate. If he still refuses to sign, we'll just send him one of his daughter's hands." The royal envoy relaxed. After all, they were well out of Grungle territory now. If the Baron dared to cross into another domain to interfere, they could charge him with insurrection. Listening to them, Alan felt nothing but contempt. They did whatever they pleased, backed by nothing more than money and power. The Baron's situation couldn't be worse. Cecil had to be brought back, now. But even as Alan racked his brain for a plan, Cecil stirred and opened her eyes. The sight before her sent a wave of panic through her. She wanted to wake Alan immediately, but he clearly intended to keep playing unconscious a little longer. The one-eyed bandit glanced over and said, "Don't waste your energy. He was knocked out by the gas. He won't be waking up anytime soon, and we're almost at Krina territory. Give it up." At that, Cecil kicked even harder. She desperately wanted Alan to wake up and get them both out of there. As her struggle grew louder, the one-eyed bandit decided it was time to teach her a lesson. Alan thought to himself, "All right, I can't sit on this any longer." He quickly redistributed his stats, switching everything to anti-personnel combat mode. Once that was done, Alan summoned Hiwa. The bandits froze in shock before any of them could react. Hiwa had already begun releasing sleep powder. At first, the 3 men paid it no mind, but when one of them collapsed, the one-eyed bandit cut Hiwa down without hesitation. While the remaining 2 were still disoriented, Alan wriggled free of his bindings and launched his counterattack. He had already quietly summoned Bill, sending him straight into a surprise assault on both men. But but the one-eyed bandit was no pushover. He deflected Bill's strikes with ease and answered with a rapid flurry of slashes. But Bill's assault had only been a feint. Alan's real target was the second bandit. That realization infuriated the one-eyed bandit. They'd been played for fools by a kid. Meanwhile, Alan kept his expression cold and focused. There would only be one chance to escape. Alan summoned the bronze statue, boxing the one-eyed bandit in from both sides. If he couldn't drop Bill in one hit, breaking through the bronze statue in any reasonable time was out of the question. For good measure, Alan had Fisher cast the evasion buff on the whole group. He already knew Fisher's skill wouldn't work on enemies, but he hadn't expected it to have no effect on Cecil either. Alan then directed Chibi and Spada, stripping the one-eyed bandit of his strength and locking down his movement. The one-eyed bandit stared in disbelief. He had never heard of any talent that could control magic beasts. While he was still reeling from the shock, Alan went in for the kill. But after landing the blow, Alan was stunned to find the man's endurance was off the charts. His blade barely made a dent. Fine then. If the blade wouldn't work, he'd beat him down with his fists. After a relentless barrage of blows, the one-eyed bandit finally dropped. At the same moment, an announcement came over the ship declaring their imminent arrival at Krina territory. Alan's pulse spiked. He had to get Cecil out of here, fast. Just as he moved to untie her, an unfamiliar voice cut through the air. "Well now, what's going on in here? Interesting. Taken down by a kid, were you?" Alan braced himself immediately, but before he could summon the bronze statue, Dagulak was already there, launching him across the room with a devastating kick. The force of it was staggering. Several of Alan's ribs cracked from the impact. Cecil's face went pale with fear. Alan's mind raced with one question. How had Dagulak moved so fast? The moment Alan had turned, the attack was already landing. For just an instant, Dagulak had completely vanished from Alan's field of vision. Dagulak let out a mocking laugh. "You don't even know what a skill is, kid?" The word was unfamiliar to Alan, but now was not the time to dwell on it. All he wanted was to get Cecil out. He still had life herb, enough to recover. Dagulak sneered. "A Miraz flower? Pointless." He moved to strike again, when Viscount Cronil's voice suddenly rang out from behind him. Dagulak frowned and turned. It was Chibi's skill at work, a deliberate distraction to pull Dagulak's focus away, giving Spada the opening she needed to strike. The moment Dagulak's body was caught in the web, Alan scooped up Cecil and ran. Realizing he'd been tricked, Dagulak let out a furious roar. Alan knew Spada couldn't hold him long. He summoned two bronze statues to block the corridor behind them, but before he even reached the upper deck, one of the bronze statues was already gone. At this rate, Dagulak would catch them in no time. Waiting for the magic ship to land was no longer an option. Peering down at the ground below, Alan estimated they were still about 100 meters up. With his mind made up, Alan turned to her. "Cecil, we're going to jump off the magic ship. Please prepare yourself." He had already pushed his endurance to around 1400 points. That should be enough. Either way, they had no other choice. He grabbed Cecil and leapt from the magic ship. After a brief, terrifying glide, the two of them slammed into the ground. The impact shattered Alan's leg bones, but life herb could fix that. Cecil didn't know that. She stared at him, her face tight with worry. Catching her expression, Alan spoke. "Cecil, let's go home, back to the Grungel Manor where we belong." Alan asked if she was hurt. Cecil shook her head. "Never mind me, are you all right? And those magic beasts just now?" Before she could finish, Alan cut her off. "They'll be after us soon. We need to move." The two of them took off toward the city's edge. To avoid getting lost, Alan sent out Hero to scout a way out of the city. At the same time, Alan saw through his summon's eyes that Dagulak had reported their escape to Viscount Cronil. Fortunately, they assumed the fall had killed them, and no order to seal the city gates had been issued yet. But the moment the truth came out, they would come at them with everything they had. This was no time to let their guard down. With some quick bluffing, Alan talked his way past the guards and got them both out of the city. All they had to do now was cross the White Dragon Mountains and they would be back in Grungel territory. But that route was far too dangerous. In the end, Alan chose to head for the northern checkpoint instead, though he had no idea how many extra days that would add to their journey back to Grungel territory. After putting enough distance between themselves and the city, Alan felt it was safe enough to stop and rest for a while. He reached into his infinite storage and pulled out dinner, and the two of them ate together. During the meal, Cecil asked Alan why he was able to communicate with magic beasts. His answer was simple: "Because I summoned them." That left Cecil at a loss for words. Alan asked if she was afraid of him. She shook her head without hesitation. She had known Alan for 4 years. Nothing he did could surprise her anymore. Suddenly, one of his summons inside the city sent back a vision. Viscount Cronil had discovered their escape and was saying something to Dagulak, but the distance made it impossible to catch the words. When their exchange ended, Dagulak broke into a run toward the city's edge, and he was heading straight for their location. Alan immediately understood. Dagulak had a tracking skill. It was lucky he had already boosted his speed stats, or things would have been dire. To figure out exactly what kind of tracking it was, Alan switched to moving through the treetops. He had noticed that Dagulak was following the exact path they had walked on the ground. That could only mean one thing. Dagulak's talent was almost certainly scout, and he was tracking them by their footprints. footprints. If that was the case, all they had to do was eliminate their tracks, and Dagulak would have nothing to follow. Cecil asked why he was going through all this trouble. Why not just fight the tracker and be done with it? Alan's reply was blunt. I can't beat him. He's the one from the ship. They had drifted off course, but from here they could still reach the White Dragon Mountains. Alan summoned the bronze statue and used its massive shield as a platform, leaping forward through the trees. It slowed them down, but it erased several kilometers worth of tracks. Confident they had bought themselves some time, Alan decided to rest on the spot. It was a 3-day journey to the northern checkpoint at the White Dragon Mountains, and they needed to stay in peak condition the whole way. Before sleeping, Cecil asked Alan quietly, "Why didn't you ever tell anyone you had a talent?" His answer came without hesitation. Nothing good would have come of it, would it? Cecil looked at him with a thoughtful expression and replied, "I suppose you're right." Taking in their situation, Alan thought with dry humor. Get caught and you're dead. This feels almost like deja vu. As for Dagulak, he had been prowling through the forest all night. He had to be near his limit. If only he would give up, but he clearly had no intention of doing so. Alan woke Cecil, and their escape continued. Meanwhile, Dagulak had noticed that their trail kept disappearing and reappearing. He realized Alan had figured out his skill. Still, he had a way to find them. Alan understood it instantly. Dagulak was moving in expanding circles, widening his search with every pass, hunting for the point where the trail picked up again. Alan thought, is that even allowed? After 2 days and 2 nights of running, Alan and Cecil finally reached the northern checkpoint of the White Dragon Mountains on the second morning after leaving Krina City. When the guards saw that it was Cecil herself, they threw open the gates immediately and offered to prepare a carriage to escort them back to Grungel. But before the words had even settled, one of Alan's summons sent an urgent warning. Alan held up a hand. No need. I'm faster than any horse. Noticing the tension on Alan's face, Cecil asked if something was wrong. Alan nodded. Just now, Dagulak vanished from my summons line of sight. He's found Hero up in the air. Cecil frowned. Wouldn't it be safer to stay with the knights? Alan shook his head. Then they'd be the ones in danger. That silenced her. A moment later, she leaned close and whispered, if you leave me behind, you'd be able to survive, wouldn't you? Hearing that, Alan understood. She was terrified, and that was only natural for a 12-year-old in a situation like this. To put her at ease, Alan replied firmly, I'm a lot faster than he is, and I made a promise to Mihei. No matter what happens, I will protect you. So stop letting your mind run wild. I'm bringing you home safe. Alan wasn't entirely confident he could shake Dagulak off, but to be safe, he summoned Hero and set them on full alert, watching every direction. With no way to track Dagulak's movements, Alan cannot afford to rest for even a moment. All he can do is push himself to the limit and try to reach Grungel Domain capital before sunset tomorrow. But something he never expected happens. Herc, circling high above, draws the attention of a magic beast below, while Alan is still helping Cecil recover her strength. Herc suddenly sounds the alarm. Alan spins around and freezes. In the distance, a Magukuru is closing in at terrifying speed. That single eye is unmistakable. This is the same B-rank magic beast that attacked the city 3 years ago. Cecil asks what they should do. Alan's instinct is clear. If they let it go, they will be hunted from 2 directions at once, making escape far more difficult. Better to take it down now while they have the chance. A B-rank magic beast is no longer a threat to him. With Cecil safely hidden away, Alan turns to face the enemy that once terrified him. The B-rank magic beast, Magukuru. Cecil can't help but worry, but Alan reminds her to stay silent. He has to finish this beast off before Dagulak catches up. He already has a plan. The same one he always relies on, the bear sea tactic, burying the enemy in a flood of bills. But against Magukuru, it doesn't work. In just a few swift moves, Magukuru wipes out wave after wave of bills. At this rate, Alan realizes, he's just throwing his summons away for nothing. He summons Bronze Statue to lock down Magukaru's movement, but the size difference between them is enormous, and Alan isn't sure the Bronze Statue can actually hold it back. One exchange later, his worry turns out to be unfounded. With Magukuru's movement locked down, Alan immediately orders his bills to attack, and the damage dealt is significant. Still, Magukuru doesn't lower its guard. Alan's attempt at a sneak attack misses entirely. With Magukuru now on alert, Alan needs a different approach. No matter what, he has to blind that remaining eye. That way, even if something happens to Alan, Magukuru won't be able to hunt Cecil down. With that goal in mind, Alan commands his summons to launch a fierce all-out assault. The sight leaves Cecil stunned. It looks less like a battle and more like 2 armies of magic beasts tearing each other apart. Is this how Alan fights every time? Alan realizes Magukuru far outclasses the half-orc king. It must rank among the strongest of all B-rank magic beasts, but it has to be reaching its limit. Just as Alan thinks victory is within his grasp, Magukuru lets out a thunderous roar. Then, using its monstrous jumping power, it breaks free from the encirclement and lands right in front of Alan. The move catches Alan completely off guard, but he still manages to react in time. What he doesn't expect is that Magukuru shatters his defense with ease. It had been holding back all along. Before Alan can recover, Magukuru snatches him up in one massive fist and begins to squeeze, harder and harder. Alan knows this is bad. Cecil, unable to hold back, cries out in alarm. The response comes back, I'm fine, so whatever you do, don't come any closer. Magukuru is savoring every moment of this, toying with its prey. That infuriates Alan. but there's no way to break free right now. To conserve his strength, he keeps using life herbs on himself, one after another. Then, after a short while, he goes completely still. Magukuru loosens its grip and peers down at the motionless Alan in its palm, satisfied that he has lost consciousness. Magukuru decides the game is over. It lifts Alan to its mouth and bites down. Alan's voice rings out, "This is exactly what I was waiting for." The moment the words leave his mouth, his short sword drives straight into Magukuru's eye, drawing a piercing shriek from the beast. With the job done, Alan tries to break free immediately, but before he can escape, Magukuru clamps down again. It expects to snap Alan in two, but to its astonishment, even its crushing bite cannot do it. The moment Magukuru grabbed him, Alan had already switched all his stats to full defense mode. If Magukuru wants to keep going, Alan is more than happy to oblige. Magukuru tries to crush him with its grip, but against Alan's high defense, it barely makes a dent. The steady pressure does wear him down over time, but Alan simply heals it all back with life herbs. He prepared hundreds of them in anticipation of his fight with Dagulak, more than enough to outlast even Magukuru, and so Alan heals himself, while driving his short sword deeper and deeper. Before long, he reaches the beast's core. With one final, deafening shriek, Magukuru goes limp and falls still forever. Alan can't hold back his excitement. "I finally did it. 3 years in the making, and my revenge is complete." The moment Cecil sees that Alan has won, she sprints toward him and asks if he's alright. When he tells her he's fine, the fear she had been holding back finally breaks through, and her voice trembles. "I was so scared. I thought I'd never see you again." Alan apologizes, but in the same breath his tone turns serious. "Our crisis isn't over yet." Cecil spots him too, Dagulak, closing in from behind. The moment he catches up, he erupts. "I'm going to tear you both to pieces right now, you little brats." Alan understands the rage completely. For 3 straight days, he's had Dagulak running in circles. Then Dagulak notices the fallen magic beast nearby and sneers. "You actually had to struggle against a Magukuru of all things." Alan's iron balls are completely gone, and his short sword is still buried inside Magukuru. The situation is deeply unfavorable, but Alan still tells Cecil to run. He'll deal with this and catch up with her later. Dagulak scoffs. "Playing the self-sacrificing hero? Nothing annoys me more than that." He kicks Alan hard, sending him flying. What Alan sees sends a chill through him. Even when he stares directly at Dagulak, the man vanishes from his sight in an instant. Dagulak taunts him again. "Not going to summon anything? That's your talent, isn't it? Don't tell me you burned through every last drop of mana just to beat that thing. If that's the case, then this little game of yours is over." Suddenly, a fireball crashes down beside him, catching them both off guard. Cecil, acting on pure instinct to protect Alan, has cast a spell. She had promised the Baron that she would not use magic before entering Academy City, but to save Alan, she breaks that promise. Alan cries out at once, "No, Cecil," but it's already too late. The blazing fireball has already left her hands. Dagulak reacts instantly. In a single flash of movement, he sends Cecil flying with a strike. Rage surges through Alan. Dagulak looks down with contempt. "You should be grateful I didn't kill you, and yet you're pushing your luck." He turns to mock Alan, but Alan fires back, calling out Dagulak's cowardice for fleeing. And not just that, Alan tells him that running away and picking on children seem to be his only talents, and that a coward like him isn't worth being afraid of. That does it. Dagulak erupts and starts beating Alan with his fists and feet. Alan is far from surprised. In fact, he's relieved. Everything is going exactly according to plan. To fan the flames further, Alan adds, "I'd save some mana if I were you. Otherwise you won't even be able to tuck tail and run when the time comes." The reply comes swift. "You idiot! Ever heard of a mana potion?" Alan already knew the whole point was to fish for information from Dagulak's own mouth, so skills consume mana for him too. From this, Alan has pieced together that skills for everyone else come in 3 types. The first type is innate, granted at birth and powered by mana. The second is learned through training and requires no mana at all. And then there is a third, a bonus skill that Alan himself doesn't have. He vaguely recalls reading about this before his reincarnation. Those born in normal mode receive 1 random bonus skill, while those born on the highest difficulty get none. Everyone in this world was born in normal mode, so they all have that extra skill. That means on top of his scout talent, Dagulak has an additional tracking skill. But fortunately, his attack power isn't that high. Full defense mode is just barely enough to hold on. Still, if someone this powerful is only a 1-star rarity, just how strong will an 8-star summoner like himself eventually become? Seeing that infuriating smirk still on Alan's face, Dagulak snaps, "You are the most aggravating little brat I've ever met. Would you just go down already?" After a prolonged struggle, Dagulak begins to show signs of exhaustion, while Alan, kept alive by a steady stream of life herbs, manages to hold on. Alan taunts, "Is that all you've got? It's too late to run now. The moment you laid a hand on Cecil, you sealed your own fate." This statement puzzled Dagulak, but then he notices summons in the distance, and beyond them, a figure comes into view. It's the Knight Captain himself, Zenov the War Demon. Dagulak clicks his tongue. "Everything you've been doing? It was all just to stall for time?" The moment Alan passed through the checkpoint, he had sent 2 summons flying ahead to the estate. Even so, he hadn't expected Zenov to take this long. He had lost count of how many times Dagulak had stabbed him. Alan decides to claim Dagulak's weapon using storage. Meanwhile, Zenov announces his name and looks toward the 2 of them. Alan gives a knowing nod. Once Zenov confirms that Dagulak is the one who hurt Cecil, his expression darkens. "Leave the rest to me. Anyone who stands against House Grungel, I will cut you down in the name of the knights. Dagulak responds with nothing but a cold laugh. 10 years defending a fortress, and all you got was a post as knight captain in some backwater. Those nobles never change, just as rotten as ever. Zenov asks him what his point is. After a brief silence, Dagulak's eyes light up with a disturbing excitement as he declares that killing lackeys like Zenov, people who do the nobles' dirty work, is his absolute favorite thing. The words have barely left his mouth. When Dagulak vanishes, Zenov immediately recognizes what this means. A scout talent. Dagulak's voice drifts from nowhere. Since you know what it is, you must know exactly how a scout is used on the battlefield. That puzzles Alan. A scout can spy out enemy positions, but is there more to it than that? As Alan is still turning it over in his mind, Zenov speaks. I'm honestly surprised you made it out alive from that kind of hell. The words have barely faded when Dagulak drives several blades into Zenov's chest and speaks at the same time. Dying for nothing makes you an idiot. Every other scout besides me is dead. As the last word falls, a hole opens in Zenov's armor. Dagulak moves in for the kill, certain his blade is run straight through Zenov's chest. But when the moment passes, he finds, to his bewilderment, that his weapon hasn't harmed Zenov at all. He demands to know Zenov's talent. When the answer comes, Swordmaster, Dagulak's confidence shatters, and Zenov speaks, his voice low and unyielding. Yes, my comrades are all gone. I alone survived, as though death itself refused to take me. We fought and bled on the front lines of humanity's last stand, so I will not stand here and let you strip away the honor of every one of us. The moment those words end, Zenov unleashes the Swordmaster's exclusive skill, Vajra Blade. Its overwhelming power cleaves through everything in its path in an instant. Alan is stunned. He never imagined Zenov was this powerful. Exhausted and battered, Alan and Cecil finally arrive at the Baron's estate the following morning. At the sight of those familiar faces, they both finally let out a breath they'd been holding for days. The 4-day chase has come to an end. To prevent anything like this from happening again, the knights take full charge of the estate's security. After some rest and recovery, Alan is back to full health. As grueling as it was, he walks away having learned a great deal, and he notices something curious. When Zenov finished off Dagulak, nothing appeared in Alan's grimoire. In other words, killing humans grants no experience. After a bath, Alan heads to the hall and gives the Baron a full report of everything that happened. Securing the seat of Minister of Justice requires enormous funds, so the royal envoy and Viscount Krina conspired together and staged the kidnapping, all to force through a joint administration of the Mithril mine. The Baron's face darkens with fury. He declares that he will go to the royal capital immediately and lay out every last detail before His Majesty. Alan isn't so sure that will be enough to bring them down completely. After all, the royal envoy is involved, and he will almost certainly distance himself from Viscount Krina. To prevent that from happening, Alan makes a proposal. I will give up the mining rights I was granted, and transfer them to you, my lord. Use them to petition the crown for a full investigation and to set things right. The Baron stares at him. Are you suggesting I use this to buy the crown's favor? Alan replies without missing a beat. Weren't the mining rights meant to be used to ease nobles' duty in the first place? The Baron says that's a completely different matter. Alan can see the Baron has no taste for this kind of maneuvering, but to make sure this never happens again, he speaks plainly. My father's hands were always dirty, from the spear and the plow alike, but it was all to protect his family as a serf. I believe nobles have their own way of fighting, and isn't this the moment to use those hands to protect the ones you love? Sebastian moves immediately to stop Alan from saying more, but the Baron raises a hand and stops him. He thinks Alan is right. My parents died when I was very young. My elder brother followed a few years later. Since then, I have always tried to be a man of integrity, but integrity alone cannot protect the people I care about. So forgive me, Alan. Please allow me to use your mining rights. Alan tells him there's nothing to forgive, but he asks in return, what exactly is noble's duty? Cecil adds that she wants to know too. The Baron is quiet for a moment, then speaks with a reluctant expression. Very well, ask your tutor about it. With that, the Baron and Sebastian depart for the royal capital, a few days after the Baron's departure. Alan and Cecil finally have their private lesson. Both of them are burning with the same question. What is noble's duty? The tutor begins, the Baron has already told me everything. Please understand that what I'm about to share must not leave this room. They agree without hesitation. The tutor produces a map and says, this region in the center is the continent where humans live, and our nation sits below the Kiamand Empire. If you've studied the history of the kingdom, you'll know that our country, the kingdom of Redishu, was once invaded by the empire. But that is only the history ordinary people are taught. To understand noble's duty, you must first learn the truth of this world, and a second history altogether, the history of the Demon King, the history of what was born on a forgotten continent. That catches Alan off guard. When he was choosing his abilities before reincarnation, he did see the Demon King listed as an option. He never imagined it was real. The tutor continues, about 112 years ago, a Demon King known as Terminus sent a proclamation to every nation demanding their submission. Every king refused, and then, 62 years ago, came the Great Calamity. Without any warning, magic beasts across every continent went berserk all at once. Alan immediately asks, was that the Demon King's doing? That remains unknown. What we do know is that the Great Calamity came shortly after the Demon King's ultimatum. At the same time, a Demon King's army of over 1 million, composed entirely of B-rank magic beasts and above, invaded the human continent. Who or what the Demon King truly is, and how it commands magic beasts, none of that is known. What humanity does know is this: the army swept forward with an unstoppable offensive and obliterated 4 nations in an instant, slaughtering every last human within their borders. From this, one thing is clear. The Demon King's ultimate goal is the annihilation of every living species except magic beasts. At the same time the Demon King's army invaded the human continent, it struck 2 others as well. The first was the Boki's Empire, the continent ruled by dwarves, who possess advanced technology and fight using magic golems. The second was Rosaheim, the continent of the elves, who channel the power of the Elf King through elven magic. The invasion drove every nation into desperate struggle to hold back the tide. The rulers of all nations reached an agreement and formed the 5-continent alliance, pooling their forces and resources under one command. But even that was not enough. Anyone who could fight, talented or not, was sent to the front lines, and casualties climbed at a staggering rate. The Baron's own father was swept up in the fighting during that very period. Recognizing this, every nation began implementing the one nation, one academy system, dedicating the full strength of each country to cultivating those with talent, hoping to raise the quality of their forces against the Demon King's army. But even so, the gains were only enough to slow the advance slightly. The Kiaman Empire ultimately lost a full quarter of its territory. I too fought on the front lines in those days. Nearly every comrade I had was killed or wounded. The situation kept getting worse, but the god of creation, Alumea, did not abandon us. A hope for humanity was born. His name is Hermios, the first person in this world ever to possess the hero talent. He graduated from Academy City with extraordinary results, and when he was deployed to the front lines at 15, he tore through the Demon King's army with unstoppable momentum. The lost imperial territory was fully reclaimed in under 5 years. Now 22, he still leads the alliance in battle against the Demon King's army. Alan remembers both of those talents were only 5-star rarity. He never imagined they could change the course of the world like this. The tutor continues, "Our kingdom of Radashu has not yet been invaded by the Demon King's army. Information has been controlled to prevent widespread panic. The territorial expansion edict issued previously was also part of this, to increase domestic production and ensure adequate supplies for the front." Alan finally understands why the Baron required wild boar from their settlement, and why that boar meat never appeared in House Grundle's own stores. The tutor presses on, "Now that you understand the history of the Demon King, we can speak plainly about what noble's duty truly is. Noble's duty is one of the core pledges of the 5-continent alliance. All royalty and nobles who possess a talent must serve 3 years of military service. Not even royalty has the right to refuse. They must fight the Demon King's army." Cecil speaks up at once. "Was Mihei fighting on one of the front lines in the Empire?" The tutor confirms it. After graduating from Academy City, Cecil will also go to the Kiaman Empire to fight. Noble's duty is extraordinarily dangerous, but those who complete their 3 years of service can secure important positions in the kingdom with ease. As Cecil's tutor, in these remaining months before enrollment, I will pass on everything I have ever learned to her. After taking in everything the tutor has said, Alan's thoughts turn inward. The birth of the Demon King has been slowly pushing this normal mode world toward destruction. 22 years after the hero was born, I chose the highest difficulty and reincarnated into this world. That means the balance between the hero and the Demon King may have already broken down, and that must be why the god of creation, Alumea, summoned me here the way she did. And so, after a month of careful maneuvering, the Baron finally brings the Krina incident to a close. Cecil and the others finally feel at ease. After things have settled down, the Baron summons Alan to his study and thanks him personally for bringing Cecil home safely. He then produces 400 gold coins, 200 for defeating Magukuru, and 200 for rescuing Cecil. Alan is surprised. He didn't expect the Baron to be this generous. But then he notices a third pouch sitting on the desk. The Baron explains, "While I was in the royal capital, I petitioned His Majesty to exempt Cecil from noble's duty, but because of her talent as a mage, not even His Majesty could grant that exemption." Alan nods. That makes sense. On the battlefield, Cecil's talent is worth 100 soldiers. The Baron says, "Precisely. And so, Alan, there is something I want to ask of you. The fact that you concealed your talent before, that no longer matters. After 4 years together, I believe you are someone I can trust. These 200 gold coins are everything I can offer. I am asking you to serve as Cecil's escort, accompany her to the academy, and protect her on the battlefield." Alan is quiet for a moment. Then he speaks, "My lord, my talent is summoner. The church once judged me to have no talent at all, and so I kept it hidden. I accept your request to serve as Cecil's escort, but I'd like to change the form of 2 of the rewards. These 400 gold coins, could they instead be used to exempt my family from the head tax?" The Baron asks at once, "Is that all you need?" Alan thinks that if there's room, it would be best to also include Krina's family, the family of the Sword Saint, in that exemption. When the Baron agrees, Alan says with quiet relief, "Then I can leave for the academy with nothing holding me back." But even so, before any of that, there was one more thing Alan needed the Baron's approval on. He wanted to resign as an attendant, and wondered whether if he did, his role as a guard would still be recognized. The Baron simply said, "I figured as much." And with that, Sebastian collected the gold coins and the house crest, then placed a short sword on the table. Alan was puzzled. The Baron explained that the sword was a gift from Viscount Grundle, a present for a guest. The word guest left Alan completely bewildered, but what caught his attention even more was the title Viscount. On that point, the Baron said, "Thanks to you, Alan, House Grundle has officially risen to Viscount." Though honestly, it's not much different from buying the title. Hearing that, Alan couldn't help but think to himself, so the Baron had been pulling strings of his own. He then asked what exactly this guest status meant. The answer he got was, I noticed you were planning to register as an adventurer once you turned 12, but simply allowing that felt like it wasn't quite enough. As a guest, it means that if anything should happen to you, House Grungel will stand behind you as your backing. This sword is proof of that. You've done a great deal for us over these 4 years, so on behalf of the family, I grant you the status of guest. Those words genuinely pleased Alan. It meant the Baron had accepted his request. With that in mind, he replied, I'm deeply honored. Then I'll gladly accept. There was still some time before his departure for the academy, so in the meantime, he had a few things to take care of. The little bird that usually delivered letters had come back empty this time, and Matthew and Mira both looked visibly disappointed. But just then, a familiar voice came from behind them. When they realized it was Alan, Rodan and Trisha rushed over to greet him. Seeing that Matthew and Mira hadn't moved, Alan went ahead and called out to them first, but Mira seemed a little reluctant to warm up to him, which threw Alan for a loop. Was this the price of being apart for so long? To ease the awkward tension, Trisha had Alan sit down and get something to eat first. During the meal, Matthew filled Alan in on all sorts of things happening in the village. Alan had actually been checking on his family every month through his share skill, but he played dumb so as not to spoil Matthew's fun. Trisha thanked him for sending money home every month, though she worried it was putting a strain on his life. Alan's reply caught her off guard. I probably won't be able to do that anymore. Rodan said that was fine, but wanted to know what had happened. At that, Alan said, I've resigned as an attendant. In a few months, I'll be heading to Academy City. He took out the short sword and explained how he had rescued Cecil, and that the family would no longer need to pay the head tax. And while he wouldn't be able to send money home anymore, he had 100 gold coins with him right now. That should last the family a good long while. Rodan and Trisha immediately refused, insisting that if Alan was heading to the academy, he should keep the gold for himself. Alan replied, I've still got over 600 more. That single line froze Rodan solid on the spot. The exchange sparked Matthew's curiosity, and Alan launched into the tale of his adventures. Once everything at home was settled, Alan prepared to head back to the Baron's estate. As they said their goodbyes, Matthew declared that he would go to the academy too when he turned 12. Alan just smiled wryly. Then I'll go scope it out for you first. At that moment, Mira, who had been quiet the whole time, suddenly said she wanted to go too. The reply she got was blunt. The academy only accepts those with a talent. You can't go, Mira. Hearing that, she slowly held up the letters in her hands and asked Alan if he was the one who had been writing to the family all this time. Alan told her yes, but it might be a very long time before I come back. At those words, Mira immediately ran over and hugged him, and Alan was moved beyond words. And so, after saying goodbye to his family, Alan returned to his day-to-day duties. 2 months passed in the blink of an eye. One day, Cecil came looking for him and said, well, if it isn't the guest who quit as an attendant without even consulting me, what are you still doing here doing odd jobs? Alan could only smile awkwardly and explain that he would continue serving as Cecil's attendant until they left for the academy. Seeing that Cecil was still annoyed, Alan couldn't help thinking he was still going to be her guard, so why was she upset about it? But right then, Cecil suddenly asked if Alan was truly planning to come along to Academy City. She told him he could go back to his village if he wanted. His reply came without hesitation, no, the academy is exactly where I want to go. Cecil looked straight at him and said, if you go there, you'll end up on the battlefield. Do you understand how dangerous that is? You have no obligation to do any of this. Alan's response was calm and steady. Yes, I know that perfectly well. Cecil gave him a look and muttered, the more I look at you, the stranger you are. While the two of them were still talking, a carriage slowly pulled into the estate grounds. When it came to a full stop, Krina and Dagulak stepped out. Alan immediately called out to greet them. Cecil had already known they were coming, but what she hadn't expected was just how close the swords St. Krina and Alan actually were. Before she could ask Alan about it though, Thomas came out to meet them. Meanwhile, Krina marched straight up to Alan with a scowl and demanded to know why he hadn't come to see her when he visited the village. Alan apologized, then asked both of them how their preparation for the entrance exam was coming along. Krina's face lit up at once. Not a problem at all. We've gotten a lot stronger over these 4 years. We can each take down a giant boar on our own now. That left Cecil genuinely surprised, and she couldn't help but quip, is everyone from Alan's village some kind of warrior? As the conversation continued, Krina asked whether Alan was also taking the entrance exam. He told her yes. At that, Dagulak realized Alan must have a talent too. No wonder he had lost when he sparred with him. It was then that Alan remembered Cecil standing nearby, and he quickly introduced everyone. Cecil immediately switched into noble mode and began her formal introduction. What she hadn't counted on, however, was that Krina was the type to warm up to anyone instantly, and Cecil found herself a little thrown off by it. The Viscount came out at that moment to welcome Krina the Sword Saint, but what followed made Alan quietly wonder whether he should step in and correct her. The Viscount, however, didn't seem bothered by her lack of formality at all. He led them inside and said that for the next 3 days, House Grungel would see to all of the Sword Saint's needs, and she was free to have the servants take care of anything she required. Alan muttered to himself, a Sword Saint who appears only once in a decade, truly a priceless treasure to the kingdom. The treatment really is on a different level. Watching Krina and Dagulak excitedly imagine life at the academy and beyond, Cecil found herself growing quietly worried. She asked Alan if they ought to tell the two of them. Alan thought it was better to find the right moment. He had already heard that Krina would become a baron upon graduation, which meant noble obligations would naturally follow. As for Dagulak, things were still unclear, so for now it was better not to spoil the mood. And so, after 3 cheerful days together, the time finally came to head to the academy for the entrance exam. Just before they left, Thomas pulled Alan aside and asked him to look out for Cecil on the battlefield. Alan was surprised by that. He hadn't expected Thomas to already know about the noble's obligation. Thomas explained that he had already studied the history of the Demon King at the noble's school. The Viscount stepped up beside them and gave Alan a firm warning. The academy will teach that history in time, but until then, do not speak of it to any other students. Alan, you have a fine group of companions. I'm counting on you to look after all of them. And Cecil. Hearing those words, Alan quietly thought to himself, being connected to both a sword saint and a mage in the same year couldn't be a coincidence. This had to be the main storyline set in motion at the moment of his reincarnation. Being steered along by some divine script was frustrating, but he'd accept it. With that settled in his mind, Alan looked at the Viscount and said, "Leave it to me. I'll take down the Demon King together with Cecil." Those words hit the Viscount completely out of nowhere. He wanted to correct Alan's thinking on the spot, but everyone had already begun moving toward their departure, and he looked like he wanted to disappear into the ground. And so, seen off by everyone at the estate, Alan said farewell to the city he had called home for 4 years, and set out on the journey to the academy. Meanwhile, deep within a fortress on the front lines of the Kiaman Empire, a lone figure sat alone inside a chapel. A soldier entered and reported, "Lord Hermios, the magic ship has arrived." I still can't imagine what the Elf King was thinking, issuing a prophecy of hope to the very person humanity is counting on. "You, my lord," Hermios replied casually. Maybe he slept on it too long. The soldier wasn't quite convinced, but the answer he got was, "Who knows? I'll go and see for myself." Sometime later, the airship carrying Alan and the others finally reached their destination, the academy city of the Radashu Kingdom. Its sheer scale left everyone speechless. Gazing up at the countless magic ships drifting through the sky, Cecil remarked, "I've heard these airships are all made by the dwarves." Alan confirmed it. "Not just these, they craft all the magic devices across every nation, and especially when it comes to academy cities throughout the world. Since they receive both funding and technology from the dwarves, they're said to be even more livable than the royal capitals." While the two of them were still talking, a magic train glided slowly into the station, leaving everyone gaping in astonishment. As they stood there not quite sure what to do, Alan stepped aboard as if he'd done it 1,000 times and bought their tickets. Seeing that, the others quickly followed. After a short ride, the train reached its stop. The sight that greeted them made Dagulak exclaim, "There are so many people here," Alan explained. "They're all exam candidates. Apparently around 20,000 people show up every year." Since he had already decided to head to the battlefield in 3 years, the first order of business now was to pass the exam and get into the academy, then raise his level as high as possible. And there was something else he needed to get his hands on. That was the other reason he'd come. While Alan was still turning all of this over in his mind, they had already worked their way to the front of the line. Before entering the exam hall, the receptionist informed them that they would first need to have their talents appraised. That left Krina and Dagulak a little confused, but once they heard it was the same process as the appraisal ceremony they'd undergone at age 5, Dagulak stepped up and volunteered to go first. Krina's eyes lit up with excitement. She couldn't wait to see just how much stronger Dagulak had become. But what left Dagulak completely devastated was that his stats were exactly the same as when he was 5. Next was Cecil, whose talent caused quite a stir among those watching. But when Krina stepped up to the crystal, the room erupted. No one had imagined that this year's batch would include a sword saint. Finally, Alan was the only one left, and he felt a very bad feeling coming on. Sure enough, the moment he touched the appraisal crystal, a blinding surge of light exploded outward, so intense that no one could keep their eyes open. But as dramatic as that was, his stat panel was a complete mismatch for the spectacle. When they saw that every single one of his stats was at the minimum, the receptionist declared Alan a failure on the spot. He felt like crawling into a hole and never coming out. The corruption in his talent had been fixed, yes, but as someone set to the highest difficulty, his growth rate was genuinely the lowest possible. There was nothing to be done about it. It looked like the academy was out of reach. But just as the commotion was building, an unfamiliar voice cut through the noise. "What's going on here? Why all the ruckus?" The young man standing beside the principal spoke up. "The crystal produced a spectacular burst of light during the appraisal, yet every single stat is at the minimum. Have you ever heard of a talent called Summoner?" The principal had not. It seems that, just as Lord Rosheim said, the boy with all E-rank stats does indeed exist. Their exchange left Alan completely bewildered, and before he could make any sense of it, the principal spoke again. Then, "Lord Hermios, this appraisal result is accurate?" That name hit Alan like a jolt. Hermios was the name of the hero. If this was really him, what on earth was he doing here? And while Alan was still racking his brain over it, the hero calmly and accurately recited Alan's base stats, along with the fact that he had no magic skills. That infuriated Alan. This breezy, casual man could somehow peer into his stats, and he'd rattled them off, without a second thought. After finishing his read, the hero declared that it must be a malfunction in the appraisal crystal. Even so, while his stats weren't the issue, just to be sure, he wanted to see Alan's summoner ability for himself. When Cecil heard that Alan could take the exam after all, she was ready to explain his abilities on the spot, but Alan stopped her. He said flatly, "I've been wanting to ask since a moment ago, "Who exactly are you?" At that, the hero immediately apologized and introduced himself. That left Krina and Dagulak visibly shaken. Alan, on the other hand, was completely unfazed, never heard of a hero before. "Also, you just read my stats without permission, didn't you? In the name of fairness, you should go through the crystal too." The hero shrugged and said he didn't mind. He stepped up to the crystal. The instant he touched it, a piercing burst of light flared outward, and his outrageously impressive stat panel appeared before everyone's eyes, drawing a collective gasp from the crowd. Alan, meanwhile, quietly used the grimoire's recording function to log all of the hero's information. After the test, the hero asked Alan to show him his ability. Alan summoned the lowest rank summon, and said simply, "This is my talent." Seeing the hero's gaze fixed on his hand, Alan breathed a quiet sigh of relief. He didn't seem able to see the grimoire or the stat boost that came from the summon's buff. A hero this suspicious was not getting any more information out of him. With that, Alan said, "Since you've seen what you wanted, we'll be heading to the exam now." And with that, he led the group away. The hero watched them go and couldn't help muttering, "That one's got some personality." Thanks to the hero's involvement, Alan was ultimately allowed into the exam hall, and he passed Academy City's entrance exam with a perfect score. After collecting their uniforms, the natural next step would have been to head to the Academy dormitories. But Alan felt that living on campus would be a little inconvenient, so he suggested renting a place nearby. No one objected. Alan pulled out the new student handbook and said, "Before that, we should probably go pick up the adventurer registration we'll need after enrollment." While they were handling the paperwork, the receptionist asked if there was anything they wanted to know. Alan immediately said he wanted to purchase 10,000 D-rank magic stones. The receptionist said that was no problem, though it would cost 100 gold coins for the purchase and 10 gold coins in processing fees. Before the words had even finished, Alan had already set the coins on the counter. To have any hope of defeating the Demon King, Alan had decided he would collect 2 million magic stones within 3 years. While he was still running the numbers in his head, the guild had already finished processing all the paperwork. The receptionist then asked if they were all planning to use the dungeon. When Alan said yes, she asked whether they wanted to register as a party. They did, but registering a party required a name, and that challenge landed squarely on Alan's shoulders. After thinking it over, Alan finally landed on a name: Degenerate Gamer. The strange phrase left everyone completely lost, so Alan made something up on the spot. A degenerate gamer is a title for someone who stakes everything in pursuit of the absolute peak. In his past life, he'd been called a good-for-nothing with no job. In this life, he carried an 8-star talent that surpassed even the heroes. The name was a reminder to himself. This time around, he would pour everything he had into becoming the strongest. With that resolved, Alan went on to fire off several more questions at the receptionist. Once he had the answers he needed, the group set out to find a place to live. After searching for a while, they settled on a house that could fit around 20 people. It was close to both the station and the dungeon, and it even had a dining hall. The rent, however, ran as high as 10 gold coins a month. Alan didn't bat an eye and signed the lease on the spot. Once they had settled in, Alan felt the time had come to tell Krina and Dagulak the truth. That left both of them completely bewildered. Alan's expression turned serious. "It's about what will happen 3 years from now." And then he told them the history of the Demon King. The revelation stunned them both. Before they could even process it, Alan spoke again. "I'm going to wipe out the Demon King's army and defeat the Demon King together with Cecil." The words had barely left his mouth when Krina shot to her feet. "Count me in." Alan then turned to Dagulak and asked what he thought. Half of everyone who went to that battlefield wouldn't come back, so he needed to think it through carefully before deciding. Dagulak's answer came without hesitation. "If we take down the Demon King, we'd become legends, right? Then there's nothing to think about. I'm in." With those words, a new entry appeared in Alan's grimoire confirming the others as party members, and at the same moment, Krina and the others could now see the grimoire floating in the air. Alan was taken aback. So this was what it looked like when a party was truly formed. They then turned to planning their next steps. Alan said that to stand a chance against the Demon King's army, they needed to accomplish 3 things first: grow stronger in the dungeon, upgrade their equipment, and find a cleric to join the party. Because I was born carrying the trial load of 100 people, overcoming that will require a massive amount of magic stones and magic power. And somewhere in this city, there may be a magic recovery ring. I intend to find it. With the plan laid out, they agreed to start putting into action from the next day. With all their worries taken care of, the day of the opening ceremony finally arrived. Of the 20,000 or so who had taken the exam, only 15% had passed. While Alan was still reflecting on that, a large, powerfully built man walked in and announced that he was the branch chief of the Royal Capital's Adventurers Guild, and had been dispatched specifically to teach the Sword Saint as their homeroom teacher. That surprised the whole class. They hadn't realized there was a Sword Saint among them. At one point, some students began murmuring about Krina's background as a serf, but homeroom teacher Kururos cut them off. He stated that within the academy, everyone stood on equal footing. There was no need for formal speech between students. Hearing that, Alan immediately turned to Cecil. "In that case, I don't have to speak formally with you anymore, right?" Cecil's expression soured at once. "You've been waiting to do this for a while, haven't you? How else could you switch so fast without even a second's hesitation?" It was only thanks to Kururos stepping in that Alan made it out of that moment in one piece. The academy held classes 4 days a week, with mornings generally devoted to theory, and afternoons split by talent. Since the academy had no dedicated class for summoners, members. Alan was granted permission to attend whichever classes he chose. After 4 days of school, their first day off finally arrived. Not wanting to waste a single moment, the group decided to take on Academy City's dungeon. With that decided, they headed to the entrance and were given a room number. That left them confused, but their attention was quickly pulled toward the adventurers around them. Cecil asked Alan whether they had enough money left after buying everyone's gear. Alan told her not to worry about it for now. After a short search, they found the room the receptionist had indicated. When they stepped inside, what greeted them was a glowing cube floating in the air. It introduced itself as the Dungeon Integrated Management System. Whenever they were ready, it could transfer the room to another dimension where the dungeon resided. Once transferred, no other adventurers would be able to enter the room. That left Krina completely lost, but Alan lit up. It's a separate server instance. This way, nobody else can see the summons. That realization set off another round of rapid-fire questions from Alan. Once he had the answers he needed, he finally told the management system to send them in. Now, while C-rank magic beasts were no longer a threat to Alan, just to be safe, he sent out Herc to scout the way ahead, and only then did the group move in. While they were still chatting and laughing, Alan had already scouted out most of the dungeon, letting the group avoid every dead end and trap along the way, and guiding them along the fastest route straight toward the dungeon boss's chamber. Along the way, Alan used the grimoire to check everyone's stats, a newly unlocked ability that had awoken after Cecil and the others joined as party members. It was such a useful skill that Alan couldn't help feeling smug about it. But while he was still basking in self-satisfaction, Herc up ahead suddenly sent back an enemy alert, and Alan relayed the magic beast position to Cecil. Working together, the slime ahead was obliterated in seconds. When Krina saw that Cecil actually had skills, she couldn't hide her envy. Alan pointed out that they could use skills too. He had them both pull up their own stat panels. As for how exactly to use them, Alan thought that was best left to be covered in class. With that said, the group pressed on. Since they already knew where the magic beasts were, they encountered no real trouble along the way, and Cecil leveled up before long. That said, it still took them around 10 hours to clear the first floor. The good news was that their progress could be saved, and Alan took advantage of that by leaving his summons alone inside the dungeon. That way, even while they were back at the academy, the summons could keep clearing floors and collecting magic stones. After 4 more days of classes, when Alan and the others returned to the dungeon, the summons had advanced all the way to the 6th floor, where the boss waited, since Krina and the others had been doing all the fighting last time. Cecil suggested letting Alan take on the boss this time so they could all see how a summoner actually fought. Alan said he was fine with that. As it happened, after using 35,000 D-rank magic stones and 7,000 magic fruits, his enhancement skill had broken through to level 6, and he had been looking for a chance to test it out. With that in mind, he summoned an upgraded Bill and won without breaking a sweat. The other 3 were left completely speechless. At the same time, the boss' clear reward appeared before them, and inside was a steel sword. Since it wasn't as good as the weapons they already carried, Alan sold it to a weapon shop after returning to Earth and used it to cover that month's living expenses. Since the dungeon boss respawned once a day, Alan wanted to make defeating it a daily after-school routine. That way, they would level up quickly and bring in a steady stream of income on top of it. Still, convenient as the Academy's dungeon was, Alan found himself wondering who had invented the technology to travel to another dimension in the first place. And so, after a stretch of peaceful, uneventful days, one day, the homeroom teacher made an announcement. The summer assignment, due in 3 months, was to clear a dungeon. Failed to do so, and expulsion was mandatory. The condition, clear a dungeon with a party of 3 or fewer. No outside help is allowed. Last year, 20 students lost their lives because of it. Alan thinks it's a brutal assignment for people who don't even know the history of the Demon King. To make it through the exam, everyone starts scrambling to find party members, and naturally, their eyes all land on the Sword Saint. That puts Krina in a very awkward spot. Seeing this, Alan has no choice but to announce that they already have a party, and mentions they are looking to recruit a healer. He goes on to lay out the conditions and compensation, but the crowd is far more interested in the fact that the Sword Saint already has a party. Seeing the reaction, Alan simply offers, if anyone runs into trouble, feel free to come to them for advice. That lifts the room's spirits immediately. In the end though, they still fail to recruit a healer. Just as they're fretting over it, a classmate named Kill suddenly approaches Alan and asks if they are still looking for a healer. Alan says yes, and invites Kill to sit down and talk over a meal. But the answer he gets is, no thanks, I don't eat lunch. Alan senses there's something Kill isn't saying. So he offers, as a show of good faith, lunch is on me today. With that, he presses 2 silver coins into Kill's hand. And just like that, Kill finally takes a seat, faced with a table full of food. Kill is quiet for a moment, then finally can't hold back. Can you really make money in the dungeon? The question catches Alan off guard, but he answers steadily. At our current pace, 1 run nets us roughly 20 to 40 silver coins. That completely breaks Kill's composure. He immediately asks if he can join their next run. Alan says of course, no problem at all. After all, a top-tier healer is standing right in front of him. There's no way he's letting this one go. Sure enough, when the next day off rolls around, Kill shows up as promised and joins the dungeon run, clearing the divine trial with ease. That leaves him puzzled. Alan explains, party members share experience even if they're not on the front line. Kill murmurs softly to himself, party members. And with that, Alan's party sets off into the dungeon once more. Just like last time, it takes only 3 days. to reach the deepest floor of the C-rank dungeon. This time, it's Krina's trio taking on the dungeon boss. Cecil strikes first, launching a fireball at the magic beast from range. At the same moment, Krina and Dagulak charge in from both flanks. After an intense exchange of blows, the fight ends with a decisive slash from Krina. Alan is thoroughly impressed. C-rank magic beasts are clearly no longer a challenge for them. During the fight though, Dagulak's arm takes a hit from the magic beast. Kill immediately casts a healing spell, and within moments the arm is completely restored. The technique is so polished that even Alan can't help asking, "Did you learn that magic at the academy?" But the answer surprises him. "No, before this I worked at a church. Healing others there paid 10 silver coins a day." That makes even Krina envious of his talent. But while everyone is still buzzing about it, Kill suddenly spots a treasure chest nearby and lights up with excitement. But when they open it, inside is a Mithril round shield, same as before. Since no one can use it, they take it straight to the weapon shop and sell it for 15 gold coins. Alan then hands Kill 1/5 of the earnings, which delights him. Alan is still thinking of how to invite Kill to join officially. When Kill beats him to it and asks to join himself, Alan welcomes him on the spot. With Kill officially on board, his name appears in Alan's grimoire, and the three of them eagerly check his stats. After a quick look, Alan asks Kill whether he'd like to move in with them to make future dungeon runs easier, but Kill turns him down. "I'm afraid not. I have somewhere I need to go back to." With that, Kill takes his leave. Cecil finds it odd. His name carries no family name after it. Alan figures Kill probably isn't a noble, which means he wouldn't have the noble's obligation to serve on the front lines. But bringing down the Demon King without a healer is out of the question. This will need more thought. 6 months later, late one night, "Yes, I need to go test something. I left Bill at home, so don't worry." Everyone stumbles out half asleep. Dagulak, completely baffled, mutters, "What's gotten into that guy now?" The words are barely out of his mouth when a pillow flies across the room. "Put some clothes on." Meanwhile, "Yes, finally, it's here. My synthesis skill has maxed out and reached level 6. My summoner skill has hit level 6 as well, and the grimoire's expansion function has reached level 5 and unlocked an awakening skill. My card slots have expanded to 60. But wait, what exactly is an awakening skill?" Without a second thought, Alan races to the testing ground. He burns through nearly all his coins and magic stones, but it's more than worth it. After 2 years and 11 months, a new companion finally arrives. "Come forth," C-rank summons. Whoa, it's huge. That has to be 3 meters tall? While Alan is still marveling, a voice reaches his ears. "A pleasure to meet you, Lord Alan." "Wait, it can talk." The summon puffs up proudly. "Of course I can talk." Maria is rich in magical power, classified as a spirit type, and appears able to pass through walls. Time to test the new skills. Alan activates Summon Awakening, but finds no change to the stats. Instead, a new awakening skill has been added to the summon card. Curious, Alan tries the skill out. Locust Swarm. It's been a while. The next instant, something jaw-dropping happens. One locust should appear, but hundreds pour out instead. Alan is absolutely floored. That's one powerful skill. Right then, let's test every single awakening skill. And just like that, the night passes. "Everyone, I'm back. This is our new companion, Maria. She'll be living with us as a guard from now on." When Maria follows with a cheerful "Pleased to meet you all," Cecil can't hide her shock. "It talks. And why are you in such a good mood?" Alan doesn't answer. His mind is already racing ahead to the weekend, when he can put the new skills to a proper test. 2 days later, Alan and his classmates are pulled out of lessons and summoned to the training ground. Word is that some special guests have come to the academy today, a morale-boosting event held every year. Just as everyone is buzzing with speculation, 3 figures stride in, and they turn out to be none other than Hermios the hero, Sword Saint Tiburk, and fellow Sword Saint Hilubel. The students erupt with excitement. Everyone, that is, except one person. The hero again? Seems like the local legend Tiburk is the real crowd favorite. Alan is still grumbling to himself when Krina suddenly shoots her hand up and rises to her feet. "I have a question for Lord Tiburk. How do you use a skill?" The instructor cuts in quickly. "Krina, that's second-year material. Lord Tiburk, please excuse her. She's a sword saint who only enrolled this year." The other students are equally in the dark about what skills even are. Tiburk studies Krina and asks, "Why do you want to use skills?" "Because I want to get stronger," she says. "Alan can use them, so I want to too." The answer gives Tiburk pause. Hermios chips in. "That's the black-haired boy I mentioned before." "I see. Krina, come here." This completely off-script move leaves the instructor speechless. Was this even on the schedule? Well, anyone else with questions, please direct them to Lord Hermios and Lord Hilubel. Meanwhile, on the other side of the ground, the two of them pick up training weapons. "Come at me." Picture the skill in your mind as you do. Alan can only think to himself. Throwing her straight in? There's no way that's going to work. Against Tiburk, a man who has fought on the front lines for over 30 years, how much can Krina's attacks actually do? She calls out slash from her skill list, but what she actually delivers is nothing more than an ordinary swing. Tiburk doesn't mince words. "Don't just shout the name. Hit me with the skill." Refusing to back down, Krina steadies herself and launches another fierce charge at Tiburk. The other students watch with their jaws on the floor, but they're also wondering, he's not explaining anything. How is anyone supposed to figure out how to use a skill? Just feel it out on your own. After being sent flying several times, Tiburk notices Krina's stamina is starting to give out and looks at her. "Giving up? Take a year and you'll get there eventually." But she fires back, "I'm fine. Keep going." Alan watches, his anxiety rising. A whole year? Krina must be feeling real pressure, seeing that both Cecil and I can already use skills. Through one failure after another, their battle drags on from afternoon all the way into the night. Hermios, growing bored, suggests a sparring match with Alan, who turns him down flat. Krina is clearly running on empty. Does this old man actually intend to teach her? Right on cue, Tiberk says. About time to give up, wouldn't you say? Krina's answer comes without hesitation. No. For a long time now, I've watched Alan, always working on something, always thinking. Alan has a big dream, so I have to get stronger, too. Good. Then clear your mind of everything else. Focus only on the skill and come at me with everything you have. Krina hauls herself to her feet, wobbling. The long battle has drained her body and mind, and her head is nearly empty. Right now, there is only one thing in her mind. Slash. That single obsession, burning past every limit, drives Krina to unleash a strike of overwhelming force, and Tiberk responds with rare praise. Excellent. Don't ever forget this feeling. With that single strike, Krina burns the last of her strength. Alan rushes to her side immediately and gives her a recovery potion. Hermios, watching, can't resist a jab at Tiberk. Why not just show her the skill first? Tiberk shakes his head. That wouldn't have worked for her. Hermios mutters, pretty harsh for a 12-year-old. Alan silently agrees. Then Hermios turns to Alan with a curious look. So, what is your dream? The only answer is an innocent smile. I'll tell you once I can. Trust you, senior. After parting ways with Hermios and his group, the party finally sees the long-awaited dungeon day arrive. Alan has been itching to put his new summons to the test. He summons Fran on the spot, much to the astonishment of Cecil and the others, but what surprises them even more is that this new summon can actually be ridden as a mount. With that, the pace of their dungeon runs is sure to be far faster than before, and with that, the run begins. Turn left. One enemy. Copy. Time to try out my new skill. In one fluid motion, Krina activates Flying Slash and drops the magic beast around the corner in a single hit. I've got pretty much all my skills working, she says with a grin. Dagulak is green with envy. Meanwhile, Maria transforms into a one-woman collection crew, sweeping up every dropped magic stone without missing a single one. Their efficiency shoots up dramatically. In just one morning, they clear the second floor and take down the dungeon boss. While everyone is still celebrating, Alan notices that Kill seems oddly down. He has joined the party and his income has grown, but he still skips lunch, and he always looks listless unless there's a treasure chest nearby. So Alan proposes, we've now cleared 3 C-rank dungeons. Let's hold a welcome party for Kill back at the base. But Kill immediately declines. I'm not great in those settings, and I have family to take care of. Alan asks curiously, does your family live here in Academy City? Kill shakes his head. We moved here together, 8 of us, after I enrolled. No connections, no references, so no proper work. I can't justify living well when they're struggling. Cecil murmurs thoughtfully, job openings. Actually, Alan, isn't this perfect? Alan catches her meaning instantly. Kill, we've been looking for someone to help with the housework at our base. How about your family moves in with us? We have more than enough rooms and we'll pay them properly. Kill looks almost alarmed. Why would you do all this for me? Because we're party members. And honestly, Kill, I can't just stand by and watch you like this. Alan means every word, but such sudden generosity leaves Kill hesitant. Cecil reads the room and steps in. We split the treasure chest earnings 6 ways. 1 share covers living costs at the base and wages for Kill's family. All the magic stones go to Alan. How's that? Kill looks puzzled. Krina explains. Alan needs huge amounts of magic stones to level up, so they all go to him. That way, nobody owes anybody anything. What do you think? Kill exhales slowly. I'm sorry to impose. Please, I accept. Alan is practically beaming on the inside. The top-tier healer is finally on board. Some time passes. Kill arrives at Alan's base with his attendants and his sister in tow. Sorry to keep you waiting. Catching a glimpse of Kill's sister, Alan wonders where their parents are, but he doesn't ask. Instead, he just waves it off. Not at all, not at all. The young girl steps forward with a bow. I'm Kill's sister, Nina. Thank you so much for your hospitality. The perfectly executed noble curtsy leaves Alan puzzled. She has no family name. She shouldn't be a noble. We can talk more later, Kill says. Alan lets it go. Welcome to our base. There's plenty of food in the kitchen, so please help yourselves. Kill responds with an awkward but sincere smile. Honestly, this arrangement means more to us than I can say. Thank you. Oh, Alan, could you drop the formal tone with me? Same as you are with the others. Alan is more than happy to oblige, and agrees on the spot. Cecil speaks up. Now that I think about it, you're a noble, aren't you, Kill? Yes, Kill answers, but the title was stripped. After that, I've been living with the servants who had nowhere else to go. I'm sorry, that was rude of me. Kill shakes his head. Don't worry about it. I've gotten used to living as a commoner, but Nina jumps in quickly. I'll do my best to help too, Kill. To break the tension, Alan laughs. Speaking of backgrounds, we're commoners now, but we used to be serfs. Kill and Nina stare in disbelief. How do I put this? Alan, you really can't tell it all. I honestly thought you and Cecil were both nobles. Cecil responds without missing a beat. I am a noble. The servants tense up immediately, but Cecil reassures them. We've known each other since back in our home domain. It's fine. Kill finds himself quietly envying that kind of bond. Friends since childhood. He asks where the 4 of them are from. Grungel, Alan answers. The word hits Kill like ice water. His expression darkens instantly. You said Grungel, so Cecil is a daughter of House Grungel? At that, the servants move as one, stepping in front of Nina. The sudden shift leaves Alan and Cecil completely at a loss. Before either can make sense of it, Kill erupts. How dare you destroy House Cranil? Cecil stares at him. Don't tell me you're... That's right. Kaburo Kranil is my father. The exchange leaves Krina and Dagulak completely baffled. Hey, what's going on here? Alan answers simply, we had a bit of trouble with the Kranils late last year. I heard it all from the royal envoy. Kill shouts, fury written across his face. House Grungel set us up. Alan now understands. The royal envoy has been stirring the pot, but he never expected Kill to be Kranil's son. He remembered Kranil once coming to gleefully announce that his child had no talent. That must have been Nina, and the child with a talent, that was Kill, but bringing House Kranil to ruin? Even by Viscount Kranil standards, that's extreme. While Alan is still turning it over in his mind, Cecil speaks. Understood. I can explain, but only to you, Kill. Could everyone else step out for a moment? Alan leads the Kranil household to another room. It's just us now. Tell me what happened. Cecil then recounts how Kranil had seized the Mithril ore and had both her and Alan abducted. Krina and the others are stunned. Because that came to light, Kranil and everyone involved was imprisoned. The territory was seized by the crown, and Lady Kranil was placed under house arrest in the royal villa. Yes, my father played a role in House Kranil's downfall, but there is nothing shameful about that. If you doubt me, go to the royal capital and look into it yourself. The evidence won't be hard to find. The fight drains out of Kill. He knows, deep down, that his father was capable of exactly that. Alan gently asks, Kill, what kind of father was Kranil to you? Until I was 5, he doted on me. But after the appraisal ceremony, everything changed. That's the last memory I have of them. After that, I was taken away from the family and set up in another city with a handful of servants. No noble education, just a small living allowance. A tutor arrived when I turned 10, sent by my father, I was told, to prepare me for the academy. I was glad. I thought it meant I still had a role to play as a member of House Kranil. But last October, the servants were all dismissed, and the allowance was cut off. Nina had lost both parents and came to me. I started working at the church. Then at year's end, the royal envoy came and told me House Kranil had fallen because House Grungel had schemed against us. By serving 5 years on the front lines against magic beasts, 2 more than the standard 3, all sins could be repaid. His Majesty said that afterward, I would be permitted to revive House Kranil as its lord. I am sorry for what my father did to you. I will leave this party, but my family needs a home. I will serve the full 5 years, and I will rebuild House Kranil. Alan takes it all in, then says quietly, so you have an obligation too, Kill. Kill looks at him puzzled, and so, the 4 of us are going to fulfill our obligation too. We're headed to the same place. Come and fulfill yours alongside us. Kill starts to protest. What are you saying? I'm a Kranil, we're... Alan doesn't let him finish. None of that matters. We need you. Our talents complement each other. That's why we form a party. Fulfilling that obligation, it's that dangerous. Cecil adds quietly, my brother went there and was dead within months. Before anyone can recover from that, Alan presses on. Behind those rampaging magic beasts stands the Demon King. We are getting stronger to bring him down. Kill, fight alongside us. Kill fires back, I'd only be using you to reach my own goal. That's enough for me, Alan says. Fight for your own goal, that's all you need to do. You better think this through. The Demon King has nothing to do with me. All I want is to reclaim my title. Before he's done speaking, the other 3 all chime in that they're fine with it. A whirlwind of emotion stirs in Kill's chest. Alan looks him in the eye. Stop carrying all of this alone, Kill. From today on, we're counting on you. And so, despite all the drama along the way, Kill officially joins the party. That evening, he sits down with Nina and the servants and explains everything. By the next day, the misunderstanding is cleared up, and living together looks like it will work out just fine. Kill holds firmly to his belief that becoming a noble again will bring him happiness. But can the royal envoy's message, cutting straight to the bone, really be trusted? And is the promise to restore House Kranil genuine? That's worth looking into. And the way Kranil treated Kill, that doesn't sit right either. But that's a matter for later. For now, growing stronger as fast as possible takes priority. So from today, Alan's party sets their sights on the B-rank dungeon. B-rank dungeons contain magic beasts from D rank up to B rank, span 10 to 12 floors, with 12 hours of travel between each floor. Clear 3, and the path to A-rank dungeons opens up. Only 5 of you? Are you sure about tackling a B-rank dungeon? After confirming, the party heads to the entrance. Feels pretty similar to the C-rank ones. Alan agrees, but the time commitment has doubled, and traps start appearing from here. Stay sharp. First things first, everyone drink their antidotes. While the party prepares, Alan uses Herc to scout the surrounding routes. With every preparation done, the run officially begins. After some time, the party reaches the 4th floor and spots a treasure chest. Just as Kill moves to open it, Cecil holds up a hand. Could be a trap or a magic beast in disguise. Alan nods. Maria, go check it out. Maria glides forward and sticks her head right into the chest. The very next second, the chest snaps open to reveal a cavernous maw. Alan cries out, it's a mimic. Maria, use Spirit Shock. The moment the words leave his mouth, Maria hammers the mimic with Spirit Shock while letting loose a stream of colorful language, clearly a little personal. In no time, the mimic is blasted to pieces. The rest of the party can only stare. No way, that was a B-rank magic beast. Alan sums it up, magic power scales with intelligence. She took it down using half her mana, but recovering that will take 6 hours. Before the words are out, Kill is already beaming. It dropped a Mithril spear. This should sell for 50 gold coins. While everyone is still celebrating, Alan picks up an alert from Herc and snaps at Dagulak. Magic beast incoming. Dagulak braces himself. The moment the creature closes in, he splits it clean in 2 with a single axe blow. Everyone is stunned, including Dagulak himself. He actually used a skill. The realization sends a rush of excitement through him. So that drains mana. Who cares about the B-rank dungeon? Let's keep pushing. I am not losing this feeling. After a full month of relentless exploration, Alan's party finally reaches the deepest floor of the B-rank dungeon. So this is the B-rank dungeon boss. Compared to this, even those giant boars look small. The B-rank giant boar stands a full 5 meters tall. Staring up at the massive creature before her, Krina swallows hard. Are you sure we can actually beat this thing? Sure, it looks intimidating, but after checking the enemy's status panel, Alan is convinced there is no way they can lose. Alan had always assumed that stat boosts from summon buffs were exclusive to summoners, but it turns out everyone in the party has something similar. He can't help but mutter, typical, normal mode players. Somehow they're almost catching up to my level without even trying. To play it safe, Kill casts high-level protective magic on the entire party before the fight begins. With every precaution in place, the boss fight begins. Cecil opens with a burst of magic, firing the first shot. At the very same moment, Alan activates his once-a-day awakening skill on his summon, Bill's Gluttony. The skill triples the damage of Bill's normal attacks. Once the adds are drawn and locked down, Alan gives Krina and Dagulak the order to strike. The two of them ride Fran and close the distance to the boss in an instant. Before it can react, they unleash their skills, but the damage is barely noticeable. Alan calls out urgently, same as the giant boar, hit the weak points. The two immediately adjust their approach. Dagulak goes first, using a skill to send the boss stumbling back, and before it can regain its footing, Krina seizes the opening, driving her blade straight into its weak point. With that single decisive slash, the boss crashes to the ground and goes still. At the same time, Alan's grimoire registers the kill. Krina and Dagulak are thrilled. The other skirmish wraps up just as quickly. Kill gets to work casting high-level recovery on the party and their summons. Just then, a chest materializes in the middle of the room. Wait, is that a silver chest? It's crafted from crimson gold, harder than even Mithril. When the chest opens to reveal a pair of gauntlets, Kill's eyes light up. Nobody can equip this, right? If we sell it, we'd make a killing. That's gotta be worth 100 gold. Alan can't help but think. I used to assume all that money grubbing was for his family's sake. Turns out he just really loves gold. And just like that, a B-rank dungeon down. With this kind of growth, normal mode players are no joke. If even this level of strength keeps losing on the front lines, the Demon King's army must be absurdly overpowered. We have to keep pushing everyone's levels. One floor of the B-rank dungeon yields 200 magic stones. Split the summon teams into 3 groups, and that's 600 a day. After a full month of automated grinding, Alan has stockpiled enormous rewards. Along the way, he collects every C-rank magic stone that drops, and purchases 310,000 D-rank magic stones from the Adventurers Guild on top of that. With the remaining funds, he buys a wagon for their base of operations and a magic tool that tracks time inside dungeons. Before long, August arrives and Academy City enters its 2-month summer break, but Alan has no intention of wasting the time. He decides not to go home, and instead uses his messenger summon Bobo to send word to his family that he's safe. During the exchange, his father tells him he's been appointed head of a newly established pioneer village, news that genuinely makes Alan happy for him. After saying his goodbyes, Alan sends Bobo to Viscount Grungel. It's been a while, this is Alan, the Viscount replies. Good work out there, I'm counting on you to look after Cecil and Kill. Alan gets straight to the point. I want to verify something. Is it true that the Cranial family can be restored after 5 years of military service? Viscount Grungel replies, if His Majesty truly said so, then it may be possible, but Kill is a healer, which also makes him a target for deception. You've likely heard that nobles who survive the battlefield receive preferential treatment back home. Most nobles are eager to send their children to the front lines, and naturally they want a healer at their child's side. The problem is that most healers among serfs and commoners stay home to tend to the sick, so their numbers on the battlefield are thin. Elves do fill the healing role, but they won't intervene in matters caused by personal disputes, so noble healers end up treated like personal talismans, exploited at will by whoever they're assigned to, and there have been cases where, even after the 3-year term expired, they were forced to remain on the battlefield until they died. The fact that the Cranial family banished Kill to an annex likely reflects the same thinking. A child seen as nothing but a tool isn't worth raising with love. Alan's expression darkens. That's a deeply ugly system, but I understand now, so it's entirely possible that the royal envoy lied to Kill, who had already been stripped to commoner status, and tricked him into enlisting. Kill is a good person who'd do anything for his family. If the crown never intended to restore his title, I have my own ways of handling this. But then Viscount Grungel speaks up without warning. Leave this matter to me, if you don't mind. Alan is caught off guard. The Viscount explains simply, the royal envoy invoked my name in this affair. That makes it my responsibility. Alan gives a slight nod. Then I won't refuse. The battlefield is still a ways off. I'll wait for your word. Afterward, Alan relays everything he's learned to the rest of the party. I see. So what happens to Kill? Does that mean the royal envoy is our enemy? Alan shakes his head. We can't jump to conclusions until things become clearer. Cecil nods. Then we wait for my father's news. Kill himself is clearly unsettled, but he manages to look around at everyone with gratitude. No matter what happens, I still need to earn enough to take care of my family. That hasn't changed. I'll keep giving everything I have in the dungeons. After a month of hard work, Alan's party finally qualifies for the A-rank dungeon. But when they arrive at the entrance, the place place is unusually quiet. A staff member explains, "That's to be expected. Fewer than 10 parties in the entire city qualify for a rank. Wait, only 5 of you? Don't tell me you're that monster party with the sword saint. You've been the talk of the adventuring community lately. Even so, please be careful in there." Alan barely registers the warning. His mind is already on the bottom floor boss, an A-rank magic beast he's never encountered before. But then his eyes drift to Kill, who's standing quietly beside him. Ever since hearing about the royal envoy, he hasn't been himself. And yet he keeps showing up, dungeon after dungeon. What a dependable person. Registration complete. Alan's party steps into the A-rank dungeon. The dungeon is vast, a labyrinth of branching paths so sprawling that even scouting parties struggle to find the deepest level. Traps are far more frequent here, and clearing a single floor requires camping inside the dungeon for 1 or 2 nights. While the party rests, summons, who need no sleep, keep watch around the perimeter, letting everyone get a full night's rest without worry. As they push deeper, B-rank magic beasts begin appearing with increasing frequency. 2 half-orc kings ahead, 1 cyclops. Krina and Dagulak charge in without hesitation and engage the enemies. The 2 half-orc kings fall quickly, but then the unexpected happens. The Cyclops suddenly goes berserk. Its flail connects with Dagulak and sends him flying. Only when Dagulak crashes down in front of him does Kill snap back to his senses, scrambling to cast recovery magic. But Fran, who had sidestepped half a pace to avoid being hit by Dagulak, accidentally steps on a trap. Kill spots it immediately. But before he can do anything, both he and Fran are teleported away. "It's my fault," Kill says, guilt written all over his face. But Alan doesn't blame him. "Krina, the Cyclops is yours. I had everyone carry recovery items and magic fruit in case something like this happened, but those supplies won't last forever. We need to find them fast." Alan first recalls the summon teams running automated grinding in the B-rank dungeon, then summons Maria, who can pass through walls, and loads her with magic seeds and life fluid, both enhanced with awakening skills. With everything in place, Alan deploys a large number of Marias and sends them spreading through the dungeon to search. 30 minutes later, found them, but the situation is bad. The 2 of them have been cornered by magic beasts with nowhere left to run. Dagulak is badly injured, and Cecil's mana is completely drained. Alan immediately has the Mariah scattered throughout the dungeon converge on their location, carrying life-restoring and mana-restoring fruit. At the same time, he tells Kill and Krina to hold on to Fran tight. They exchange a confused look, and then Alan activates Fran's awakening skill. Fran's speed surges to 300 kilometers per hour, with the magic seeds and life fluid sustaining them. Cecil and Dagulak manage to hold their ground. After a grueling, desperate battle, the 2 of them burn through every last recovery item and cut down the final beast. Alan's group arrives just as the dust settles. The 2 survivors finally exhale. "You really saved us, Alan. I honestly thought we were done for." Seeing them battered and exhausted, Kill lowers his head in guilt. Alan gives him a firm pat on the back. "It's alright, Kill. We'd come for you too if you were the one in danger, so stop beating yourself up alone." Kill lifts his head slightly. "Yeah, if it were me, you'd come find me too, wouldn't you, Alan?" With Kill back on his feet, the party sits down to discuss how to prevent a situation like this from happening again. Just 1 month later, Alan's party reaches the deepest floor of the A-rank dungeon. That close call seems to have shaken Kill back to his senses, a silver lining to a rough situation. And today, the party sets their sights on the A-rank dungeon boss, but the moment they step into the boss chamber, everyone freezes. That's the A-rank magic beast? It has to be 10 meters tall. Can we even reach it to hit it? Then again, it's a heavily armored type with high physical resistance. If we can crack this one, the others should be manageable too. And our levels are high enough now. It's time to give it a shot. Though speaking of which, everyone else is level 56, and I'm only 49. Done grumbling, Alan starts rearranging his card setup to prepare for the boss. This is the first time he's deploying Guardian, which absorbs damage dealt to allies, along with Shark, which boosts critical hit rate, and Salted Fish, which has a chance to completely nullify physical or magical attacks. Roles assigned, Alan decides to make the opening move himself this time. Let's start with a little trick I've been saving. With that, Alan summons a swarm of flying bears high up in the air. The boss's guards notice immediately, but while they're still staring up trying to figure out what they're looking at, Alan grins on the other side of the room. "That's our biggest cannon." The flying bears detonate all at once, wiping out every guard in an instant. Alan pumps his fist. "That's basically magic at this point," Kill is buzzing. "Every single one of them." Alan cuts in before the celebration starts. "The boss is still up." Krina and Dagulak press forward, ready to finish the job, but the boss begins to move toward them, slow and deliberate, and with one casual stomp, it completely throws them off their rhythm. Before Krina can regain her footing, the boss's boulder-sized fist comes hammering down on her like a landslide. The sudden attack catches the entire party off guard. "Are you alright, Alan? Did your Guardian sub-skill substitute activate?" On the other side, Dagulak shouts, "Krina!" Everyone holds their breath, and then a voice rises from beneath the boss's fist. "I'm fine," the party breathes again. Kill rushes to cast recovery on her without delay. While Krina keeps the boss occupied, Dagulak charges up the boss's arm and unleashes his skill directly at its head. Burst fist. At the same moment, Krina grips her sword with both hands and draws back into a full charge, then drives a Crimson Lotus strike with full force into the boss's body. Alan turns to Cecil. Watch your aim. Don't hit Krina or Dagulak. Everyone else attack. Alan summons every summon he has and launches a full-scale assault, wave after wave of relentless pressure, and at last, the boss's final sliver of health runs out. The party erupts. Yes, we cleared the highest difficulty. That A-rank magic stone is huge. A chest appeared. Wait, why is it a wooden box? But when they open it, the contents are extraordinary, including a crimson gold axe. Alan's face lights up. That's made for Dagulak. Time to retire the Mithril axe. Alan stares at the boss's remains, a sobering thought settling in. If creatures like this are swarming the front lines, we still have a long way to go on both weapons and levels. He's still turning the thought over when the dungeon system chimes in. Well done, degenerate gamers. Your Conquest certificate for clearing an A-rank dungeon has been issued. Alan tilts his head. A Conquest certificate? There's a stamp on it. Is this some kind of collection card? The system responds immediately. Clear 5 A-rank dungeons to redeem a qualification certificate for an S-rank dungeon. The party goes silent. No one knew an S-rank dungeon even existed. Everyone starts talking at once. And with that, the dungeon-filled summer break comes to an end. On the first day back, Alan, thanks to your advice, we cleared a C-rank dungeon. Classmates crowd around with their thanks. When suddenly one of them speaks up. Alan, is it true you cleared an A-rank dungeon? A stunned silence falls, followed by a wave of admiration. What else from the sword? Saints party. Even third years struggle with a rank? By the way, Alan, what class are you taking this afternoon? Alan replies, to make up for a summoner's naturally weak personal combat, I'm going to focus on sword training from now on. Krina's eyes go wide with excitement. Then come spar with me. Alan looks pained. Give me a break. Just as Krina refuses to let it go, an instructor walks over. Since you're so eager for a sparring match, I'll be your partner today. With Krina sorted, Leifer approaches Alan and offers to spar with him as well. The two of them begin to train. 3 hours later. Worthy of the Sword Saint title? You really do have what it takes to clear a rank, Alan thinks to himself. In terms of swordsmanship, the instructor still has the edge. At least Leifer made for a decent workout. Before he can dwell on it, the instructor's voice cuts in. Actually, both of you. The principal wants to see you. Come with me. Krina shoots Alan a suspicious look. He throws up his hands. I haven't done anything this time, I swear. The principal? I haven't seen them since the entrance exam. He's still mulling it over when. The instructor asks, you received a Conquest certificate from the A-rank dungeon, correct? What are your plans going forward? Clear an S-rank dungeon before I graduate. There are only 4 A-rank dungeons in Academy City, so for the 5th one, I'll look within the kingdom's dungeons. By the way, how many have you cleared? The instructor pauses. 3 A-rank dungeons, that was my limit at the time. Since T-Burk, no one in the entire kingdom has qualified for an S-rank dungeon in decades. If you pull it off, it'll be historic. While they talk, the 3 of them arrive without realizing it. There, that's the one. Alan mutters something about the bizarre architecture before following the others into the principal's office. Good, you're here. Take a seat. But before anyone else can speak, Krina blurts out, I have a question. Are you an elf? The reply is calm. That's correct. Appearances aside, I am 1,000 years old. I have been managing the city and serving as principal of the academy for the past 43 years. The number catches Alan off guard. He thinks to himself, is that why the expressions are so hard to read? And is this architecture an elven thing? Once they're all seated, the principal continues. I have something to say to those of you who cleared the A-rank dungeon. I would like you to participate in the academy tournament 1 week from now. Krina's face lights up immediately. Alan, on the other hand, looks unmoved. Academy tournament? I've never even heard of it. The instructor explains, it's only announced to students from 2nd year onward. Magic users are excluded. 16 participants compete in a single elimination bracket. Guests attend from across the nations, including members of the Radashu royal family. Alan frowns. Dagulak hits harder than I do. Wouldn't he be a better fit? Unfortunately, axe users are not eligible to participate. The principal continues, skills are permitted during matches. That is why I wish to recommend Alan. Alan sees through it immediately. The principal wants to see what a summoner's talent actually looks like in action. I must decline. Summoning isn't something I can put on display. I'd be eliminated in the first round. The principal doesn't push it and instead turns to Krina. The winner will earn the right to face Sword Saint Dagulak. Then register Krina. The day before the academy tournament, 3 guests arrive at Alan's party headquarters. Kill and his sister Nina are summoned to the main hall. Once everyone is seated, Viscount Grungle speaks. You must be Kill and Nina. You both resemble Viscount Corneille quite strongly. I'll be direct. I have already inquired with His Majesty the King regarding the restoration of House Corneille. His Majesty, however, has no recollection of making any such agreement. So I have brought this instead. Kill's face falls. What is it? A contract that will allow you to restore House Corneille. The conditions require 5 years of military service, but the term may be shortened if you achieve results equivalent to those 5 years. His Majesty has already signed. House Grungel and House Hamilton have signed as well. The second family name gives Kill pause. The young man seated beside the Viscount speaks up. Kill, we're in the same class, but I don't think we've actually spoken before. before. I am Leifer Hamilton. My father, Earl Hamilton, is the liege lord of both House Grungel and House Crenil. I am here as his representative. Alan speaks up, a pointed edge in his voice. A liege lord is supposed to look after the lesser nobles under their care, though it's not unheard of for a lord to turn a blind eye when problems arise. Leifer shifts uncomfortably. Perhaps compensation isn't the right word, but while Kill fulfills his obligations, House Hamilton will see to the welfare of his family. The words lift a weight off Kill's shoulders. His last remaining worry gone. Still, he can't help but ask, his voice uncertain, "Why would you do all this for us?" The reply is measured. There is no need to be uneasy. As nobles, we must take responsibility for our own actions. This is simply what ought to have been done. However, I ask that you hear what I am about to say. The royal envoy who visited House Crenil in the past, and the one you personally encountered, Kill, neither of them has been forthcoming, but both serve the same master, Crown Prince Imbil Radishu, the king's nephew, and the man who will inherit the throne. Without definitive proof that he gave the orders, even his majesty cannot move against him. The one behind Cecil's abduction and Kill's deception is still untouchable. Viscount Grungel presses on. His majesty is aging and his health is declining. The crown prince will likely take the throne within 5 years. There is no guarantee the new king will honor this contract. Kill straightens up. Thanks to everyone here, the possibility is no longer zero. Then I, as someone who will one day reclaim his noble title, will do what must be done. Seeing Kill's resolve restored, Viscount Grungel rises to leave. Before departing, he turns to Krina with a smile. "The Academy tournament is tomorrow, isn't it? I look forward to watching you, Sword Saint Krina." To inspire morale and showcase the military strength being cultivated against the Demon King's army, the Academy holds the tournament every year. Dignitaries from every nation gather to witness it. "Alan, that man over there is the Crown Prince." Alan follows the gaze. A young man comes into view. He's still studying him when surprised gasps ripple through the crowd. Krina has just effortlessly dispatched a spearmaster with a 2-star talent. The crowd erupts. First-year Sword Saint Krina just defeated a third year and took the championship. Her off-the-charts strength draws even the elves' attention. That Sword Saint's growth rate is monstrous. Word is she's already cleared an A-rank dungeon. Next comes her match against Taberk. Everyone who hears it holds their breath for her. And now, the champion will face Sword Saint Taberk. Will we witness the blade that has defeated every champion before her? "You have come this far already?" Krina meets his gaze without flinching. "Yes, I've gotten stronger." Taberk says nothing in return. He simply reaches for his weapon, the Orachalcum Greatsword. "I am the one who hunts magic beasts, the one who slaughters the demon race, the one who destroys demon gods. Krina, give me everything you have." Krina drops into her stance at once and launches her skill, Flying Slash. Taberk doesn't move a muscle and takes the hit directly, but that attack was never meant to land clean. The moment he commits to blocking, Krina is already airborne, focusing every ounce of power she has, drawing crackling thunder into the full length of her blade. With a cry of Thunderblade, she brings it down on Taberk with everything she has. The crowd roars, but as the strike lands, Krina frowns inwardly. That didn't feel like it connected. Before she can process it, Taberk raises his greatsword and releases his skill, Sword Strike. Krina responds in kind, meeting it with her own Sword Strike, choosing to face him head-on. The same skill, but the gap in power is vast. Krina strains to hold her ground when a crushing impact tears through her midsection. "Is this truly your full strength?" The crowd watches with bated breath. Krina forces herself to stay upright, barely, but she's clearly taken serious damage. That hit like a mountain. Taberk's voice reaches her. "Surely this isn't where it ends?" Krina grits her teeth. Not even close. They clash again, fiercer than before. Against Taberk's Thunder Roar blade, Krina unleashes her strongest move, Crimson Lotus Strike, but it is not enough to fully stop his advance. With a thunderous explosion, Krina's silhouette vanishes inside a wall of flame. The pain across every inch of her body tears away her consciousness in an instant. Sheer force of will drags her back for a moment, but her body has nothing left to give. The host announces, Sword Saint Krina is down. Once again, it is Lord Taberk who defeats the champion. Taberk speaks, "Grow stronger, for the sake of your companions." The audience erupts in admiration. Lord Taberk is still sharp as ever. In the infirmary, "These wounds are severe. Begin treatment immediately." As the medics scramble to start the healing, Alan rushes in and uses his awakening skill, Life Leaf. Krina recovers in an instant, leaving the medics completely speechless. Krina sits up, tears rolling down her face despite herself. "I gave everything I had, and I couldn't land a single hit." Alan responds without hesitation. "True, in skills and in weapons, Taberk is stronger across the board, but don't be discouraged. You just need to surpass him, that's all. Keep your chin up. The Academy tournament comes back next year. Take him down without breaking a sweat and wipe the slate clean." Krina doesn't let it crush her. Viscount Grungel lets out a quiet breath of relief. But just then, the sound of applause echoes down the corridor. What a magnificent fight. The guests are deeply satisfied by a clash between sword saints they haven't seen in a decade. "Good day, Viscount. Shall we have a word?" Viscount Grungel composes himself and replies, "Your Highness, Crown Prince, how may I be of service?" The reply comes smoothly. "Rewarding the lord who raised a champion is a duty of the royal house." When Zenov moves to follow, inside, a guard steps into his path. "We'll handle the escort. Wait outside." The Crown Prince urges Viscount Grungel to take a seat without delay. The whole setup leaves the Viscount uneasy. Then, a voice cuts through the room. "Pardon the intrusion, my lord Viscount. Please, sit here." The guards move to seize the intruder, but the Crown Prince waves them off. "What's this? There's a servant in here? Go ahead and sit, Viscount." Seeing no suspicion on the Crown Prince's face, Alan mutters to himself, "Infiltration successful. I left Cecil and the others with the Knight Captain. They should be fine. What does this guy want with the Viscount?" While Alan is still working it out, the Crown Prince speaks. "The Grungel domain seems to be running smoothly. A sword saint has emerged. Mithril mining has begun, and House Cranil has been eliminated." The Viscount stiffens. Eliminated may be a strong word, but the Crown Prince cuts him off. His Majesty had a sudden impulse and drew up a covenant to restore House Cranil. As it happens, the Kiamund Empire has submitted a request. They need capable individuals to reinforce a fierce front, so send Cranil's son, the Sword Saint, and your daughter. There are others who can fill the role of a cleric. The Viscount goes pale. "Please, wait just a moment." The reply is cold. "What are you so flustered about? Your alliance faction, aren't it? You should be glad to send them off in accordance with the king's will. Pitiful. We in the kingdom faction advocate cutting our support for the alliance forces by half." Alan is slowly piecing together the political factions of this kingdom. The alliance faction who support the campaign against the Demon King's army, and the kingdom faction who oppose it. The Crown Prince continues, "Reluctant to part with your daughter? Then send the cleric." But before the Crown Prince can finish, Alan cuts in. "My Lord Viscount, surely going to the front is a fine opportunity." The Crown Prince's expression darkens. "And who are you?" "I'm the party leader of the group you just mentioned." That gives the Crown Prince pause. "The leader? Not the Sword Saint? You?" "That's right, protecting Lady Cecil wherever and whenever. That is my role." The Crown Prince lets out a dismissive laugh. "So you're nothing but a pawn used to protect his daughter." Alan doesn't even flinch. He replies with complete indifference. "Yes, exactly." The Viscount has regained his composure. "If this is what His Majesty wishes, I will comply." Alan exhales quietly. "You nearly made a terrible mistake for the sake of your precious daughter. You really ought to thank me for that." Over the 3 months that follow, Alan's enhancement skill reaches level 7, and his summons gain 1,000 points across 2 stats. The second A-rank dungeon is cleared at full pace, and plenty of treasure chests are opened along the way. They obtain weapons and items made of crimson gold and orichalcum, along with newly available stat-boosting rings. Before long, January arrives. After clearing the same dungeon 76 times, the party finally encounters the one said to be the strongest boss of the A-rank dungeon, the Heavy Dragon. Everyone is thrown off. Just one dragon. Every other boss brings escorts. "Alan, what do we do?" The guild said not to engage it. Alan's face lights up. "We're absolutely giving it a shot. Still, to be safe." Alan reconfigures his card loadout to handle powerful incoming attacks. The whole party is already equipped with crimson gold tier weapons, and each member wears 2 rings matched to their stats. With all preparations complete, Alan plans to open the fight himself, and reminds everyone to brace for the dragon breath. Cecil's skill names are too abstract. With that, Alan renames Meteor Rain to Flying Bear Bomb. With a series of thunderous blasts, flying bears detonate across the heavy dragon's body, but the skill that can one-shot a B-rank boss barely seems to tickle this thing. There is no visible damage worth mentioning. "A mere 5 dare challenge me?" When the heavy dragon actually speaks, everyone's eyes go wide with surprise. "Ignorance is sin. Let the flames of your ignorance consume you. Writhe and suffer." But before the heavy dragon can finish its monologue, Alan launches another flying bear that breaks the dragon's composure entirely. "You miserable insect! Can't you see I'm still talking?" Confirming the attacks are having some effect, Alan calls out with barely contained excitement. "Good, that knocked off a solid chunk of its HP. Move out, Fran." With that, Alan applies an awakening skill, boosting Fran's movement speed. The heavy dragon immediately launches a counterattack against the advancing party. But with the speed boost active, no matter how the heavy dragon strikes, it cannot land a single hit. Still fuming over that, Krina has already circled around to its flank and unleashes a sword strike, but the scales are solid as rock. She can't break through at all. Alan mutters. "Krina's attacks aren't working? That thing is hard. Does it have physical resistance?" Then the heavy dragon lets out a roar that shakes the entire chamber. "You insects!" Alan snaps into action. "Breath attack incoming! Get the iron armor up, now!" The words barely leave his mouth before the dragon breath comes screaming out, swallowing Alan and the others whole in an instant. Cecil watches in horror and screams, "Alan! Krina! Dagulak!" At that same moment, the 3 caught in the breath are fighting desperately against the wave of scorching heat. The hit would have been fatal, but the iron armor's awakening skill, Substitute, redirects all the damage onto itself. The heavy dragon snarls in irritation. A strange skill. Dagulak can barely believe it. Incredible. A direct hit and they're fine? Alan orders them to stay on alert because a second breath is coming. Krina, for her part, figures if they can block it, there's nothing to fear. Cecil begins her support, while Alan stays on guard and directs Maria to assist from range. After a brief exchange, Kill suddenly notices something is off. This one feels like it's taking longer than usual. Alan catches on. "Is it charging up? Move! Everyone scatter!" But before he finishes, the heavy dragon unleashes a far larger breath attack. Fortunately, Alan had already deployed Iron Armor's Guardian skill to shield the group. Even so, the last hit shakes him. One shot wiped out 4 iron armors. If Kill or Cecil had taken a direct hit, they would have died instantly. Damn it, no time to resummon. Sorry, Krina, Dagulak. With that, Alan transfers the newly summoned iron armor to shield Kill and Cecil. At the same time, The heavy dragon fires another charged breath. Kill and Cecil narrowly escape, but Alan's group of 3 takes a devastating hit. Cecil immediately calls out to Kill to start healing. Having discovered that this mindless barrage is working, the heavy dragon, without a shred of honor, begins charging up again, giving the party no room to breathe. Damn it, another breath already? Alan, we can't. But before Cecil can finish, Alan cuts in. I've got the breath pattern down. Power and timing both. We keep going. Everyone settle in for a long fight. The heavy dragon sneers. You're only delaying the inevitable. But those words are enough to lift Dagulak and the others back to their feet. Alan starts calling out positions. Everyone line up behind me. But in that moment, Alan notices someone is missing from the line. Krina, what's wrong? No matter how many times he calls, there is no response. Something is clearly off, and the whole party feels it. Just as they are about to go to her, Krina suddenly charges at the boss. Sword raised. Alan's heart leaps into his throat. The heavy dragon taunts at once. That eager to die? With those words, the heavy dragon aims its breath directly at Krina and scores a direct hit. Alan and Kill scramble to get a heal on her, but to everyone's shock, Krina is completely unharmed. She pushes straight through the raging flames and slices off the incoming dragon claw in a single stroke. Even the heavy dragon hadn't seen that coming. A shriek of pain erupts and reverberates through the entire dungeon. A flash of recognition crosses Alan's face. It triggered Krina's extra skill, Limit Break. Before the heavy dragon can even recover from its howl, Krina launches another assault, and every strike now cleaves clean through those impenetrable scales. Cecil stares in disbelief. What? Why did Krina suddenly get so much stronger? That's Krina's extra skill, Alan says. As the words leave his mouth, he checks her stat panel and is stunned. It is completely off the charts. Every stat has increased by 3,000, and a new ability has appeared. Rapid HP Regeneration, restoring 1% of Krina's HP every second. Desperate to put down this insufferable human once and for all, the heavy dragon seizes a gap in her attack pattern and slams her away with its tail, then goes all in on another charge. But what it hadn't counted on was that, with rapid HP regeneration active, as long as the blow is not a one-hit kill, Krina snaps right back into action. By the time it realizes that, it is already too late. Krina drives her sword clean through the air sac deep inside the heavy dragon's chest, and the breath it never got, the fire explodes inside its own body. In the end, the strongest boss of the A-rank dungeon is consumed by the very flames it took such pride in. The sight leaves the others speechless. She took out the heavy dragon on her own. Alan shakes his head in wonder. That's the strongest boss, all right. The experience reward is 2 to 3 times more than anything else. He turns to her. Are you okay, Krina? She has already returned to normal. Yeah, I took down the dragon. The casual delivery makes Alan and the others feel their earlier panic was completely unnecessary. Kill and the others walk over, visibly envious. That extra skill is incredible, Alan adds. I don't have one myself, but everyone else can use them. Cecil immediately asks Krina how she activated it. The answer, I'm not sure. By the time I noticed, I was already using it. Just as Cecil is about to press further, Kill suddenly shouts from nearby, Hey, everyone, look, there's a golden chest over there. That makes Alan shout in surprise. We've never seen one of those before. When they open it, a gleaming ring comes into view. Cecil's eyes widen. Alan, could that be the one? Alan slips it on with trembling fingers. This could be the MP recovery ring I've been searching for. But when the grimoire displays its effect, Alan's face falls. Damn, it's an HP recovery ring. Dagulak and Kill quickly offer comfort. It's disappointing, sure, but this gives us hope. If there's an HP 1, an MP recovery ring has to be out there too. Then a thought strikes Cecil. Alan, since we've slain a dragon now, does that mean we could take down the white dragon too? Kill looks startled. The white dragon? The one that migrated from the Grungel domain? Dagulak and Krina both nod enthusiastically. Exactly, everyone back home would be thrilled. But Alan throws cold water on the idea. No. Don't take out the white dragon yet. Cecil frowns in confusion. Why not? This time we only won because Krina happened to trigger her extra skill. And if we kill the white dragon now, it will cause serious problems. When Kill inherits the domain, the Krina domain is now crown territory. Right now it's worthless land barred from Mithril mining for 100 years. But the moment the white dragon falls, the royal family might never let it go. So we wait until Kill is lord, then we take it down. No one will be able to complain. That scheming grin makes it genuinely hard to tell which side is the villain. And Kill can't help but think, Father really did pick the wrong enemy. With the heavy dragon defeated, Alan and the party set their sights on the third dungeon. 3 months later, as yet another high-rank magic beast falls, Krina levels up. It should be a moment to celebrate. But her face is anything but happy. Does this mean I've hit my ceiling? Alan nods slowly. Yeah, honestly, I didn't see this coming. At just 13, everyone except me has already hit the level cap of 60. Dagulak asks with a shaky voice, if our levels can't go up anymore, does that mean we can't get any stronger? Alan shakes his head. Not at all. There's still plenty we can do. First, everyone needs to master their extra skills. And second, we need stronger weapons and rings. Krina and Dagulak are honest. That's all true. But without levels to gain, it's just hard to stay motivated. Alan, though, feels something is off. In the online games he played in his past life, level caps were raised in stages. The same might be true in this world. 2 years left before the front lines. He has to find a way to make this party stronger. April arrives. Over 2,600 students who completed their assignments move up to second year. Classmates stay the same after moving up, but every year each class welcomes a few transfer students. And with that, 3 new students walk into the classroom. Krina's eyes catch on something. Those ears. But before she can finish, the homeroom teacher calls for order. Quiet. These 3 are from the continents to the northeast and northwest of the central continent. Go ahead and introduce yourselves. One of them steps forward. My name is Sophia Rona. I come from Rosaheim, the land of the elves. Please just call me Sophie. The second one speaks up. I am Frumar. I serve as the bodyguard of Princess Sophia Rona, who is to become the next queen. The room erupts. As everyone buzzes with shock, the princess steals a glance at Alan and is caught almost immediately. Their eyes meet, and Sophia Rona's cheeks flush with a shy smile, but Alan completely misses it. What's the matter? Is the black hair that unusual? If you're looking for trouble, bring it on. And that guy next to her is definitely not 13. Before Alan can finish his internal commentary, the third transfer student speaks up. I'm from the Bokus Empire, land of the dwarves. The name's Maruru, and I'm 13, just like everyone else. Nice to meet you all. Alan groans inwardly. There is no way I'm getting tangled up with these 3 weirdos. But then the homeroom teacher says, Alan, your party only has 5 members, right? You'll be taking these 3 under your wing. He looks at the princesses, bright, expectant eyes, and cannot say no. Alan lets out a resigned sigh. Fine. Come find me at lunch, and we'll talk. 3 more members. Whether 5 or 8, the experience reward stays the same. That's not a problem. But how much do these 3 actually know about the Demon King? At noon, in the dining hall, let me introduce myself again. I'm Alan, leader of the Degenerate Gamers. We go to the dungeon every single day. Knowing that, do you still want to join? Sophie answers without hesitation. Of course. I've cleared a C-rank dungeon in Roseheim's Academy City. My class is Elven Mage, and Frumar has the Archer talent. We will definitely be useful. Maru chimes in from beside her. My talent is a bit unusual. I'm a Stone Shaper. Neither Elven Mage nor Stone Shaper is something Alan has ever heard of. They must be race-exclusive talents. While Alan is still turning this over in his head, Cecil leans in curiously. Elven Mage, is that similar to Alan's ability? Sophie's eyes light up. Really? Is it? Alan figures a demonstration later will answer that well enough. Maru speaks up too. I want to join as well. I've got personal reasons, and I'm not sure how much use I'll be, but I want to get stronger. We have to get stronger within 2 years. That's the goal, right? That tells Alan everything she knows about the Demon King. Maruru's words strike a chord with the other 4, and they welcome all 3 newcomers without hesitation. Alan thinks quietly to himself, a shared goal, and just like that, everyone's on board. The 3 decide to move into the base together. Sophie is so enthusiastic that everything falls into place quickly. As lunch ends and everyone heads back to class, someone calls out to Alan. Seeing it is the principal. Alan replies, quite a rare sight running into you out here. The principal answers, I'm a little worried about Princess Sophie. I may be a high elf of the royal line myself, but Princess Sophie outranks me. Even with Frumar watching over her, you're the party leader, so I'm counting on you. 4 days later, Sophie and the others officially move into the base, and the party has a welcome gathering ready for them. We've really grown, haven't we? It was a great call renting this place. Since we're all living together, can we drop the formalities? Without a moment's thought, Sophie agrees. Of course, Lord Alan. That title leaves Cecil looking utterly baffled, and Alan himself doesn't even notice. Right then, let's not let the food get cold. Dig in. Krina and the others need no further encouragement. On the other side of the table, Sophie and her companions press their hands together and bow their heads in prayer. That catches Alan's attention. The elves worship. I think it's. He turns to Sophie. Are you praying to the Elf King? Yes, we offer prayer to the one who bestowed elven magic upon us. Through the prayers of the people, an Elf King will eventually become an elven god. We pray so that Elf King Rose may ascend to that divine state. Cecil turns to Maru with curiosity. Do you not pray? Maru shakes her head. Nope. Lord Digoradani says it isn't needed. Noticing Alan's curious look at that name, Maru explains, that's our dwarven deity, the Dungeon Master, the one who conquered every dungeon in existence. Alan thinks to himself, that doesn't sound particularly impressive. But then Maruru adds, Lord Digoradani also invented countless devices. The dwarves use those as the basis for all their magic tools. Alan's opinion changes on the spot. Sophie looks over with curiosity. Lord Alan, do you follow any deity? Alan shakes his head. Kill speaks up. I follow the god of creation, Alumea. Praying at the church is what lets me use recovery magic. By the way, you 3 are going to start on B-rank dungeons now, right? Does that mean we're moving to B-rank too? Maruru's jaw drops. You're already doing a rank dungeons? Sophie shrinks a little. Then we'll only be holding you back. Krina waves it off and turns to Alan. Let's all go to the B-rank dungeon together. Alan shakes his head. No. The A-rank dungeon stays on schedule. Fully cleared by July. We run the B-rank dungeon alongside it. Cecil raises an eyebrow. Do we actually have enough time for both? We split into 2 teams, Alan replies. Both groups clear their dungeons at the same time. With the new members added, the party divides into 2 groups to tackle the A-rank and B-rank dungeons respectively. Alan and Dagulak will spend a day and a half in the B-rank dungeon first, then use the remaining half day to catch up with the A-rank team. A plan only possible because of his summons. With the plan in place, Alan and the party head to the dungeon and officially register the 3 transfer students as members of the Degenerate Gamers. Alan's grimoire pulls up their stat panels. Maruru and Sophie peer at it with wide eyes. A summoner's abilities are so fascinating. You can actually see strength as numbers. Meanwhile, Dagulak stares at the panel. 48 and 67. Sophie laughs awkwardly. Elves live very long lives, you know. Alan then summons Fran and has everyone mount up. Sophie becomes an instant fangirl. Lord Alan's talent is absolutely incredible. After going over the ground rules, the party dives into the dungeon. But with everyone working together for the first time, a few cracks show. Maruru, stepping in as a temporary vanguard, pushes too hard and takes a hit. Sophie immediately begins her incantation. Spirit of water, grant thy healing. As the magic completes, Maruru's body is restored. Sophie explains on the spot. Elven magic can't match a mage or a cleric in raw output, but it excels at recovery and support. At that moment, Frumar draws his bow in one sharp motion and activates his power shot skill. With a sharp whistle of air, the arrow punches clean through a magic beast lurking in ambush above. Leave the rear support to us. Dagulak can't help but be impressed. These two are solid. Their performance only makes Maruru feel worse. Sorry, I was useless. Alan doesn't dwell on it. Maruru possesses a talent so rare only 1 in 10 million people carries it, but without a golem, she has no way to use it. The frustration is plain on her face. Damn it, if I had a golem I could crush a dragon, no problem. A claim that bold makes Dagulak and the others wonder if Maruru's talent is even more terrifying than they imagined. And thinking about it, the Boki's empire became the mightiest military power precisely because of their golems, enough to hold back the invasion of the Demon King's army. Lord Alan and Dagulak, you're both on a completely different level. Having you on the same battlefield is genuinely reassuring. Hey, could you drop the Lord Alan? Why do you only use that title for me? Sophie blinks as if realizing she never explained. Ah, that's right, I haven't told you yet, because Lord Alan, you are the one foretold in Elf King Rose's prophecy. That stops everyone cold. A prophecy? What kind? Elf King Rose normally remains in a deep slumber, but 10 years ago, he began murmuring in his sleep. A black-haired boy will be born in the greatest nation of the central continent, with the lowest rank across all talents. Alan mutters, that's just someone talking in their sleep. But Sophie says with absolute certainty, it is a prophecy. The black-haired man who stands atop that which soars and blots out the sky shall rid the world of all darkness. Those are Elf King Rose's exact words. We are absolutely certain that future is real. Something that soars and blots out the sky. That has to mean a summon. Alan grumbles inwardly, sure, I do want to defeat the Demon King, but a prophecy as vague as rid the world of all darkness is completely useless. So when I arrived at the academy, the principal and the hero already knew about the prophecy. That must be why I've been allowed to move so freely here. In that case, even Dream Talk deserves some gratitude. With that settled in his mind, Alan claps his hands. Alright, time to move. Let's get the B-rank dungeon wrapped up. Mid-April, in the Grungel domain. You've arrived? You must be Alan? The magic beast responds in a calm voice. That's right, father. It's a pleasure to meet you. I am Maria, one of Alan's summons. We've come to assist you, village chief, with the settlement work. After the introductions, everyone's eyes drift to the massive boar and the cargo it is carrying. Alan, what's all this? Weapons and supplies, bought by me, Krina, Dagulak, and Cecil. Alan's father picks up the rarest of them, the crimson gold weapon, and tilts his head. Is this thing rusted? Alan sighs. That's a crimson gold spear. His father's expression shifts to one of visible disdain. Meanwhile, the others pick up the more ordinary but still expensive Mithril spears, and are absolutely thrilled. Rodin turns to his son with a worried look. Are you doing all right for money? Alan tells him not to worry. They earn over 2,000 gold coins a month from the dungeon, and he currently has 20,000 in savings. With the village matters sorted out, Alan throws himself back into dungeon clearing. Before long, late July arrives. Everyone step back. I'm using my extra skill. Sophie activates Great Spirit Manifestation. I am Gnome, Great Spirit of Earth. By the covenant with the Elf King, I lend you my power. As Gnome slowly brings its palms together, massive boulders tear free from the surrounding walls. With a single command, crush them. Every boulder crashes down onto the magic beasts ahead, and in moments they are ground to nothing. Dagulak lets out a low whistle. Now that's power. Sophie beams with delight. I'm not sure if it's because I've gotten stronger, but it worked perfectly this time. A once-a-day skill is really something. Maruru nods along. I could probably pull something like that off too if I had a golem. Sophie adds. Frumar can use one as well, but Frumar shakes his head. I only use it when Princess Sophia Rona is in danger. Watching all 3 newcomers able to use extra skills while they still can't, it hits Alan's group with a mix of envy and frustration they can't quite hide. The day before summer break, the principal suddenly calls Alan in. This is exactly how it started last year. The familiar setup gives him a bad feeling immediately. Sure enough, the principal says, there's someone I'd like you to meet today, and then a familiar voice reaches their ears. Hey Alan, how've you been? Krina's eyes go wide. It's the hero.